Greetings and welcome back, everyone, to Into the Nexus, the podcast all about Heroes of the Storm. I'm Garrett, and I am here with NotParadox. Just you and I, buddy, because Kyle has welcomed a new Fergling into the world.
10 pounds, 4 ounces, right?
Yeah.
After
48 hours of labor.
That is a huge little Ferg.
That's a big baby and a long amount of time to be in labor. So big, huge congrats to Kyle and Kristen. Obviously, we miss Kyle. We would always like him to be here, but if there was ever a time to understand why he can't make it on the show, it's this week.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. No, seriously, I think that's awesome for him. I know he was really excited too. So, but 10 pounds, 4 ounces that's a first time, right? They haven't had any other kids.
Oh
right?
yeah, they are brand spanking new parents. I think I just realized at this exact moment, Paradox, that brand spanking new is a reference to childbirth.
It's probably right. I mean, they spank the baby so that it will start crying so that it gets air in its lungs. So brand spanking new is, well, I've mostly only heard that term from car salesmen. That is, I'm pretty sure that's where the reference comes from.
I love the idea of you going into a car lot because you're shopping, and it's just straight up the most stereotypical car salesman in like a matching plaid suit comes up and says, "Well, welcome. Can I interest you in this brand spanking new Civic or whatever car you're looking for?"
I've had that exact experience, but you forgot the matching plaid tie to the matching plaid suit. So
yeah,
you got to make sure. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you coming back on the show, dude, and especially filling in on a week such as this, where if you didn't show up, it would have just been me by my lonesome. So as we're kind of moving away from just being like, oh my God, Kyle's a dad, because I could probably sit here for a full hour and just say that over and over again and try and come to terms with one of my closest friends now being a father. But let's actually talk about Heroes of the Storm. It's been about a month since you've been on. Anything new? Any like pet projects, new heroes you've been trying to work on? Anything new in the meta that's kind of blowing your mind?
I've been messing around with a few things. I'm trying to think. I might need to pull up the roster again to kind of refresh myself. But lately, I was playing with a couple streamers, and we were trying to get because I decayed a bit, and then I was just like, you know what? I want to hit Masters again. So I took like one whole weekend and just went for it. And I kept going against this Dahaka, and he was going race car build, right? Where you get that extra movement speed whenever you hit a bush. And he went like a really weird version of it where he used adaptation, and he would just race car right into our team, pop adaptation. We couldn't do anything about it because if we attack him, he just gets healed back up. And if we don't attack him, he's going to kill everyone on our team or at least CC or do whatever. And it was really, honestly, it was just hilarious. Like, it was the funniest thing I've seen in a long time. This guy's just charging through our team, has this giant circular disc thing flying through, and we just can't do anything about it. So it was absolutely hilarious. I've been messing around with that build or a variation of it. I don't go to adaptation. I go isolation. But it's really funny and it's really fun. Is it meta? Probably not. His meta build is still probably the meta build, but is that build really funny on maps with a lot of bushes like Cursed Hollow and Dragonshire? Absolutely. So I've been messing around with that. Outside of that, I'm trying to think if I have anything new that I've been messing around with. Let me pull up the roster for a little bit.
So did you keep going up against this Dahaka? Like every time this Dahaka was on the opposing team, you never ended up on the same team as this Dahaka?
Like 4 or 5 times we went against him, but we were never with him. And then he popped into my stream the next day and he's like, I think I played against you. And he was like, I was the Dahaka. And I'm like, is your name Unfathomable? And he's like, yes, you remembered me. I'm like, of course I did. You are a race car. And it was just funny because, he actually messaged me earlier. He was talking about it. So yeah, it's really good. But yeah, I don't know. Let me take a peek at the roster. What about you? Any new things that you've been playing around with?
Well, I've been honestly, I've just been dusting off my Sylvanas again. There's just Sylvanas just keeps coming up, either rough games against her or just in conversations with listeners of the show or other folks that I play heroes with. And I know it's nothing new. She's been in the meta for a while, a popular hero, and she's always been one of my favorite heroes that I almost never draft, if that makes any sense.
I feel it. She's definitely one of those heroes that for some odd reason always ends up in the back of my mind, despite the fact that she works in so many situations that I'm always like, oh man, I need something that does physical damage and spell damage. It would be great if it could do like sustain damage or burst depending on what I need it. I'm like, what can I pick? What can I pick? And I'm like, oh, I'll just pick Junkrat. And then it's like, wait, Sylvanas is open, and I always forget that. And it's definitely one of them that throws me off. Because of that. But yeah, I don't know. It's tricky. But yeah, I took a peek at my roster. It's Rhaegar for sure. I started picking him back up after they changed his stuff around. And recently, I mean, I played him in 3 of my games getting back to Masters and went 3-0. And then I checked my KDA after because I was trying to show someone, I'm like, they were like, oh, I feel like I die a lot on Rhaegar. I'm like, oh, then you might just be playing him a little wrong. Here, and his KDA was like 3.4 or something. And I was like, here, I'll take a peek at my KDA to show you kind of like where you should be at. And my KDA was 40. And I was like, oh, I don't think you can hit that number. And I didn't realize I hadn't died in those 3 games that I won. And I was like, wow. Okay, well, don't shoot for 40. But like try to shoot for like 8 or 9, you know? And I said, that's going to be a lot easier. I started watching the games that I played and realized that every team fight we had, I had gotten so many camps before the team fight that the enemies were all split and we won these 5v3s every single fight. So I never died. I never had any concern about it. And I was like, that's like, I don't know. I mean, we talked about you guys talked about the patch notes. I was just talking in your chat room while you guys are talking about the patch notes from the Rhaegar changes. And it was like, you guys said, oh, they said that he was absurdly broken and then they buffed him. And like, I feel like people still don't realize how good Rhaegar is right now. It's crazy. He's super good.
I mean, it's. I think it's part of the struggle with a kind of a class-based game of any of them. I think no matter how much offensive capability or let's just call it proactive capability, because getting mercs is being proactive in this game. It's not necessarily. It is in a way offensive. But I don't think it matters how much of offensive capability you throw at a support. A certain percentage of the game's community is still going to look at it and like, oh, support. They're just, they're not going to be.
It's a heal bot. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And he's like the worst of the heal bots because he doesn't heal very much.
Yeah, and so I just assume there's still a decent populace of the heroes player base that have just never played Rhaegar, because I think if you've ever played Rhaegar at any point in his history, you understand. Like, it's not a secret to you that Rhaegar can throw down better than most. To me, I dabble in all of the hero types in Heroes of the Storm. So I look at, to me, like when I found out Ariel could be like an offensive healer, that was a big surprise. But at no point has Rhaegar been a surprise that he can fight and he can take mercs.
Yeah.
So it's I think it's just a perception issue more than anything else. And yeah, I'm with you. I'm so happy to just see Rhaegar's on my teams right now, and I do think whether or not certain people are still in the dark about his capabilities or not, I still think there's been a really Rhaegar's had a positive impact since this changes, because haven't really been hurting for folks wanting to draft into the support role in my games like I was, a few months back, which just makes me happy because, I'm happy to play on Rhaegar, but personally, I'm much happier in like a bruiser role. But if I have to support, happy to do it on Rhaegar because I kind of get to be a little bruisery. We always talk on this show, and I think you've been on a few times when we've kind of talked about this concept, but when you are trying to figure out how to adjust your roster and add something new to it, a really good place to kind of put yourself mentally is, well, what skills do I already kind of have ingrained in me from the heroes that I'm currently playing, and what heroes am I not currently playing that I can apply those lessons to? And so if you understand merc timings, you use that as a springboard if you're looking for new heroes to play. You know, what other heroes can efficiently take mercenary camps? And so the last 2 weeks I've been working on ETC, and that's been the biggest challenge for me because I've been mostly jumping between heroes that can merc. Before ETC, my previous project was Malthael. You know, and even Malthael can merc and Malthael can solo lane. You know, that's where my brain's at. And then I got on ETC and I'm like, I can't wave clear for a damn, and I am one of the most inefficient merc takers in the game. So that was one of the biggest shifts for me in quite a while.
Yeah, it really is. And it's tricky. I mean, I think the tank role, if you do like doing mercs, the tank role is going to be the hardest role to switch into because there are no tanks that can do mercs without going a really weird build. Like, I think Blaze is the best example. Like, you can go the auto attack talent that increases your attack speed plus level 7 one that makes it where you do 70% more damage to non-heroes. And it's like, you combine those and it's like you can do camps now, but you also have a build that just has no utility. And that's kind of what you need as a tank, is a lot of utility. And I guess that's the biggest struggle for people that love doing camps and then going to tank role. But yeah, Rhaegar's he's a ton of fun right now, and he's just in a really cool spot. And I think the thing that was really fun for me about Rhaegar is, I guess the biggest thing that surprised me is when I was looking up like win rates and whatnot, I figured, I was like, oh, Rhaegar is going to be great in high ranks because people understand camps and they understand wave clear. So you're going to draft him in those times. I said, he probably has a low win rate in low ranks because people aren't doing camps and his healing's a little bit lower. But like 4 or 5 months ago, I checked on hot slots and in like bronze and silver, and he was still like the second highest win rate right behind Lily in those ranks. And I'm like, that's pretty surprising to me. But I mean, maybe it's not, because just having that extra damage, having like the W's pretty easy to use, totem's pretty easy to use, his heal's
all
pretty
of his
easy
abilities, all of his basic abilities are. I mean, his heal just naturally has decent throughput and is going to heal multiple people just automatically because that's the way it functions. The W, you have nothing better to do than be offensive with it. And so it kind of forces you down that offensive path, which we talk a lot about, kind of this, like almost like a bravery is almost like a resource, especially in lower league games. So just bringing extra damage to the party with your lightning shield is a good thing. And you know, totem, I mean, the fights tend to not end in lower leagues. They tend to go on and on and on. And if someone's about to get away, and you can just slow them for just an extra second or two, thanks to that ability.
Usually good.
Can help you snowball. Yeah, exactly. So that doesn't surprise me too much, but yeah, it's been good. I'm still, working on my ETC a little bit. It's just been fun watching his rise in the win rates. He just seems to keep going up and up and up. Just doing very well. But yeah, so things should get a little bit, maybe a little shaken up, because we've got a pretty sizable patch coming next week, and there's quite a bit to talk about. So let's go ahead and move into this week's Heroes of the Storm news.
We're on, boys! Ha ha! Let's liven up this place!
The moment is upon us.
Yes, I'd mana tap that.
So there's a patch on the PTR this very moment. If you haven't gone and looked at it, you should. And if nothing else, go watch the trailer for the Scarlet Heist, because that is the next event coming to the Nexus. It's basically going to be our Halloween event for this year. But it's not just, mob-themed skins for some of your favorite heroes. It's also a rework patch for 2 heroes. Both Junkrat and Whitemane are getting reworks. They're on the PTR at this moment, and they'll be hitting next week. But let's talk about the kind of fun, flavorful stuff first. The Scarlet Heist itself, the event is coming, and we're getting essentially mob-themed skins for Whitemane, Junkrat, Orphea, and Sergeant Hammer, who's like a straight-up mob car. Like, her tank is a mob car, and it's pretty cool. It's fantastic.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's very cool looking. I don't play a lot of Hammer, but this is what happens in Heroes of the Storm sometimes. Sometimes you get a skin that just looks so damn cool, is so inventive and so out of this world, that you think to yourself, I guess it's time to to start playing this hero that I'm kind of terrible with? I'm a bad hammer. You don't want me on your team, Paradox.
Yeah, hammer skin I think is going to get a lot of people playing hammer that don't know how to play hammer, which I am perfectly fine with. It's a unique character, and I think those, whenever there's times that encourage people, I know a lot of people are like, oh, it's Nova free week, let's not play right now because we don't want all these people playing Nova. I find HOTS has like the coolest weird characters, and it's like I think it's fun when it encourages people to play those. So I think this is a cool skin that's going to get a lot of people playing hammer, and it may be a time for people to kind of learn how to counter hammer as well. So because that's, I think, the problem with a lot of hammer is people will see it and be like, we can't go in the circle, but she could kill our structures in the circle. How do we stop her? And it's kind of fun to see people play her so they learn how to counter her. They're like, oh, I'm dying to range. I probably shouldn't be dying to range. But yeah, I think that's I'm pretty excited for the skins. I think the skins are all really good. I think usually when new skins come out, I think my only complaint is the price of the skins. They're all a little on the higher end for what they are. They all have like maybe one or two themed abilities, and they've all been bumped to like almost legendary, which is a little disappointing. But outside of that, I think all of the skins are fantastic. I think everything about them is really cool. The Orphea little hat that's on the chomp when it goes down is hilarious. We've got like the Sergeant Hammer skin's just great. The Whitemane skin just looks amazing. Like,
yeah,
all of them
really
are awesome.
Yeah, Whitemane's really out of this world. I mean, straight up looks like a Vegas showgirl.
Oh yeah,
like really bombastic, a really cool kind of costume design. I like the Junkrat. He's got the roulette wheel on his back, and he's kind of wearing this mobster suit, but there's a purple tint, and so Junkrat finally has achieved full Joker. He is peak Joker in that purple suit variant.
He is. It's great.
We all already knew where the inspiration for Junkrat came from. I like the Joker. I like Mad Max. What if the Joker was in Mad Max and Australian? And that's how they came up with the same character, and now we can just straight up have
Get on.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's pretty freaking good. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to kind of unlocking these skins, and apparently dusting off my Sergeant Hammer. But let's get into the meat of the show, which is kind of talking about the reworks. And I figured we could start with Junkrat because this was a pretty big surprise. I mean, we for weeks now on this podcast, we've had these blue response sections of the show because there's just been so much conversation, so much communication happening from developers of Heroes of the Storm on the subreddit. They were just kind of getting in and really kind of opening up. And there was a lot of talk about reworks. As a matter of fact, we basically got a preview of Diva's rework. Like, we got some hard facts on what to expect from Diva's rework just last week. And so we knew that was coming. We've been hearing a lot about the Tassadar rework, like little hints here and there. So like, all right, that's definitely coming. Tassadar, there's even been hints to Whitemane. So Whitemane, while surprising that it came so soon, is still not the biggest surprise in the world. But at no point has Junkrat been mentioned in terms of when the blues are in the subreddit talking about rework. So here it is, a Junkrat rework, and it opens up with some noteworthy nerfs because both the basic attack damage on Junkrat is being reduced by just over 5%, and then frag launcher's damage is being reduced by just a little bit over 7%.
Definitely. It was a complete surprise. Like, it really was out of nowhere. I don't think anyone was expecting it. And I think a lot of people that I've talked to, not only were they not expecting it because it's never been announced, a lot of people were never expecting it because they were like, oh, well, Junkrat was fine. And I think the confusion about it is like, this reminds me 100% of Diablo's rework, right? Where his Q build that did % health damage was the only build. He was competitive. He was in a lot of games. There was nothing wrong with him. Like, he was being used. He wasn't overpowered. I mean, he had his moments, of course. But he was used all the time. And then they're like, let's rework him so he has multiple builds. And I think that was the idea with the Junkrat rework, but it came out of nowhere. And yeah, starts right off the bat, 5% nerf on auto attack, 7.8% nerf. Did you do the math on this? I think that's funny.
Yeah. Anytime I'm looking at numbers being moved around, I'm like, I don't care about 128 to 118. What percentage damage loss is this?
I always take like a guess at it, but I never actually like pull up the calculator and toss one number over the other. But I like this. So, and I see it all whenever you have these notes, and I always lurk the notes. But the thing that's funny about this, and I think a lot of people, I read this post afterwards that was like, oh, these are just huge Junkrat nerfs, and I like did the math on really where it's going to come down to. And if you play Junkrat in, hey, my team's fighting here and I'm fighting a state over, that's going to be nerfed because you're going to have less range, as well as the way to get his damage back up to above where it was nerfed. You have to get good at the mini game, which is the auto attack Q, auto attack Q, auto attack Q. And if you can do that, his damage is actually a lot higher. So
yeah, I was watching your video actually right before the show, and you were on the target dummy showing the kind of DPS. If you're hitting that rhythm of the auto attack Q, especially with some key talents, it's kind of gnarly.
Yeah. So level 1, for example, you get tricky shuffles, means that if you don't have any of your bombs left, you're doing bonus damage. Then you get to like level, was it 13, I believe, where if you fire off your Q right after an auto attack, you get 25% more damage. So if you're going to perpetually have 15% more basic attack or 25% more bomb damage, then that 7% nerf and the 5% nerf is kind of negligible, which makes it to where if you're good at Junkrat, this is an overall buff. But if you liked the play style of fighting a state away from everyone, 3 continents away, however you want to describe it, you will still, like, you're still going to be able to do damage, but it's going to be 7.8% less damage than you've done before. But if you're good at like getting in the fight, hopping around, using like your W to get around different areas of the fight while getting auto attack Q, auto attack Q, auto attack Q, and then bouncing around the fight even more, you're going to be doing on average about 11 to 12% more damage than you did before. Not to mention there is some more utility talents that you can maybe sneak in there, do slightly less damage, but then like knock people around with low cooldown on your W. So he's got a lot of design or different choices. I think there's a couple builds that might shine ahead of others for damage, but let's get into the talents and let's take a peek at that. Yeah,
well, you mentioned level 1, and I think you talked about that if you liked being able to fire from multiple screens away from what you were actually trying to hit, you're going to feel a sting from this change, a rather sizable one, and that starts right off the gate when you're looking at what talent changes happened to Junkrat, because put some English on it, it's gone. It's just being removed entirely. This is what increased frag launcher's travel distance by 50%, which what gave you that just that monster range. So that is just gone. However, you mentioned tricky shuffles, and if you haven't looked at it, but you know your Junkrat talents, you know that that's not a level 1, it's a level 7. Well, not anymore. Now it's a level 1. It's being moved up straight to level 1. This is the talent that when your frag launcher has no charges left, you gain a movement speed buff. It used to be 15% when it was at level 7. They are adjusting it to be down to only a 10% bonus, but again, you're getting it at level 1 if you're taking it. And they also gave it additional functionality that while frag launcher has no charges left, the Junkrat's going to gain a 15% bonus attack damage. So this is kind of what you were alluding to, where it's going to be much more about a basic attack game here, but also a rhythm with your frag launcher. And I like that. I mean, so often we tend to come around to the importance of auto attacking. I think in the earliest days where it's been brought up here on this podcast is whenever we talk about what separates a good support from a great support, and it's your damage numbers at the end of the game. But it's gone so far past that with like the Chromie rework, there's a little bit more importance on landing your auto attacks. One of the most recently we've been promoting the auto attack build Li Ming. It's been all over the place. Landing your auto attacks is important, and it looks like the Heroes team is now just trying to force Junkrat players to realize the importance of landing auto attacks.
Definitely. It was something that I think Junkrats should have been doing the entire time. I think one big problem that people have with Junkrat is, and in fact, I had this literally yesterday. I was playing on my Smurf, and I do not condone Smurfs. I think Smurfing's pretty dumb. But one of my friends kept going, and this is kind of like one of those WoW things where, like, you know, when you're playing WoW on a PvP server and like you get ganked by level 60 and then you call over your level 60 friend to come in. Well, one of my friends was playing, and every game they were going against Smurfs. And so they were like, all right, get on your Smurf. We're going to go Smurf versus Smurf. And I literally beat 3 of my friends that I knew had Smurfs. They were people that I actually knew playing Smurfs. But it kind of showed me that, because we had a game where we had a silver Junkrat, and all he ever did was stayed back and fired off auto attacks. And by the end of the game, I was playing Joanna. I had 78,000 hero damage, and he only had 50,000 hero damage. And it went to like 25 minutes, or it was like level 25 by the end of this game. That's why my Joanna had so much damage. Then I played Junkrat, and same rank, game didn't even hit level 20, and I had 130,000 hero damage. And it's like, it already showed you that there was more that you could be doing on Junkrat than just firing off abilities, because he was just sitting far back throwing off Qs, and I was going in there and Q auto, bounce around to a different side of the fight, Q auto. And it's like, this is something that the good Junkrat players were already doing, and now it's just encouraging it. So the challenge about this is going to make it a little bit harder for the new players trying to get into Junkrat, because they're going to do even less than they did before. But they kind of hold your hand, telling you what you should be doing. They're like, hey, auto attack damage. You're like, oh, I'm not supposed to just be a mile away firing off 4 grenades at a time. I'm supposed to be up there doing more. So while it does make it a little bit trickier, I do think they hold your hand a little bit more about telling you how you should be playing Junkrat.
Yeah. I mean, it's important to mention that the bonus attack damage is not baseline. You do have to take tricky shuffles at 1 to get that, but it, at least on paper and looking at it on the PTR, to me, this looks like the most attractive talent.
Yeah, I think extra wound timers. Someone showed me a video, and he's like, I think you're sleeping on extra wound timers. And he picked extra wound timers at 1, and then he went spread volley at 16. And he just fired off the first 3 shots with the spread volley that kind of went everywhere. And then he used his W and popped over to the enemy support, hit him once with the final shot of extra on timers and the spread volley. So all 3 bombs hit their support, literally did half of the person's health, then immediately riptired, and then blew up the person with the other half their health. And I was like, okay, that's kind of hilarious. But if you're jumping into the enemy team like that, you're likely never going to make that work. But that was hilarious. So I do think there is...
It's like a disrespect build, but the problem is you have to commit to it at level 1. Right?
Yeah. And you have to be willing to jump into the middle of their team, and likely you're just going to die. And also, if the enemy support sees what's happening and you're flying towards their team, they just need to move enough to where they don't get hit by all 3 bombs. But that was hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. So I saw that. By the way, a lot of what they did to Junkrat it's unexpected, and there's a lot of things that are surprisingly good in very specific situations. So it's a really interesting rework. Came out of nowhere, but really interesting.
Yeah. Also, there's a new talent called Blow 'em Up. Basically, the final grenade out of your Q deals a 60% bonus damage.
No. So that's connected to extra wound timers, right?
Oh, it is.
Yeah. They combine those. Blow 'em up is it's kind of interesting though. So blow 'em up, you hit someone with either your mine or your trap, and then you do 25% more damage with basic abilities and basic attacks. So if you can like hit someone hits your trap, you do more damage. I wish, but this would also be kind of busted. I wish it wasn't basic abilities. I just wish it was 25% more damage, because then you could just hit someone with a trap and then go and riptire and then blow them up. But that would be kind of too easy, I think, and it would be too what's the word for it? Like linear. Like you know what's always going to happen when you get hit by a trap. It's the second you get hit by a trap, it's always going to be a rip tire into your face. So I feel like if it's too like linear on a talent, then that gets kind of boring. You want, especially for a hero like Junkrat that has a million different scenarios, you want things to be kind of like you have a whole bunch of different uses for things. So I think that's where blow 'em up comes in. Is it's like, do you want 15% flat auto attack damage? Do you want a small chance of getting a burst out of extra round timers, or are you the person that's always putting the perfect traps down and your team can follow up on that? I don't know. We'll see. I think they're all really interesting though.
That's the kind of thing too where I look at that and I'm like, well, if this really took off, we would probably get very good at not getting caught in Junkrat traps. And
Yeah.
kind
It's
of
very
self-correct
true.
if it became a very meta thing. But I always find that interesting. But yeah, my eye is still on tricky shuffles, if for no other
Same.
reason than the additional functionality. I mean, it still gives you a movement speed buff. Yes, it's nerfed, but the additional functionality is really attractive. Looking at his level 4, again, quite a few things going on now. A taste for explosions, which was, like the level 4 talent when you talk about Junkrat kind of having a single build. This was part of that problem, and it's being nerfed rather substantially. The damage scaling went down by roughly 60%, and so did the maximum bonus damage.
For taste for explosion?
Yes.
So it's weird. So it went from a flat number to a percentage.
Oh, I miss. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm just
so
reading
that's
this,
the
the hell out
weird
of this.
part. So that's why on paper it looks really bad. So how this is going to work for Taste for Explosions, if you were someone who could finish this quest before level 21, then it's worse. If you're someone who finished this quest after level 21, it's better.
Interesting.
Yeah. So honestly, I rarely see this thing done. Like I never see, outside of ARAMs, I rarely see this quest ever even finished. So I think in general, it's not going to affect anything, which makes it a little strange that they changed it at all. It's going to be slightly better for ARAMs, I think, in the long run. But yeah, really, really strange. I don't know why. I'm not 100%. I'm not complaining on it. I have no complaints. I just think it's a little strange that they did change it, because the numbers are like pretty close to the same as what it was before. It's just percentage based now.
Yeah. So my brain just like saw the 0.5 to 0.2, and I just added percentage to the 0.5.
Yeah,
and I was like,
to be completely honest, I did kind of the same thing when I was going through it. I looked at the 0.2 and I was like, oh, that's weird. Like you only have to stack it 20 times now, and you've got your thing, not 200. And I did kind of a completely different math mistake when I first read it, but it was just funny because I was like, oh, it like stacks so much faster now, and it doesn't. But
that is very interesting. Yeah, you would essentially have to plug that 40%, kind of take that 40% bonus damage, maximum bonus damage into account, and kind of apply it to all the possible levels you could be at to see what your gain is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did also want to add one tiny detail about the level 1s that I just remembered. So with tricky shuffles, you only get the value of the extra thing when you're out of frag launchers, which is why a lot of people didn't pick this talent at 7 if they were planning on going endless nades, because you wouldn't have a lot of time with low cooldowns. I will also note that extra wound timers has a very similar problem of if you hit 3 people 3 times with your grenade, you're never going to get that bonus 60% damage. So if you're planning on going cooldown reduction with endless nades after level against a very frontline heavy team, you're never going to get the value of your 2 level 1 talents if you go tricky or if you go extra wound. Not a big deal because you'll get the value of them for a long time before 16, but that is just something that I remembered. Anyways, we can go back to level 4 talents though.
Yeah. There's another interesting thing happening at 4, which is that a level 20 talent has been moved to it. Boom Pow. This is the cooldown reduction, but that cooldown, it's the hitting an enemy hero with a concussive mine reduces its cooldown. As it currently sits as a 20 talent in the game, it's a 12-second cooldown reduction. They are reducing that to an 8-second cooldown reduction. But you're getting a level 4 instead of level 20.
Yeah. It it's definitely it's tricky because one of my friends has this rule about level 20 talents that are moved down, and he says that whenever a level 20 talent is moved to an earlier level, it's always busted. Even if it wasn't picked before, it's always busted.
Right, because Boom Pow was not a popular talent.
Yeah, and I think that's where this is one that I keep reading this and going, like, on paper, I'm like, okay, it's kind of cool, and it seems really good, but at the same time, I'm like, whatever. But then, like, I keep looking at it and going, man, is this gonna be the thing? You know, we have 2 strong talents in this tier: Taste for Explosions, which, I mean, that enables your entire Q build, and then Boom Pow, and it's like, well, I don't know, it's tricky. It's like, it could be really good, but it also could be really bad. Like, you could be constantly saving enemies, you know?
So the cooldown on Concussion Mine is 16 seconds. So 8, like, you're literally having your cooldown. Like, that is,
cut it in half.
That is an important piece of utility. And if you're getting it at 4, this really affects your entire game. Like, just when you think about it in like that raw percentage, if you're casting this on cooldown, just how many more mines over the course of a game that is. I mean, in a perfect scenario, if you're casting it on cooldown, it's literally basically double the amount of mines you would have had before if you're taking this talent at level 4.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's definitely interesting. I feel like most people are still going to go Taste for Explosions just because they have that little bit of scaling that they, just in case the game goes long, they've got that scaling. I feel like that's still going to be the go-to. Chattering, we do have that, I believe, a little earlier. I don't think it was level 4 before? Let me double check. It was level 4 before. I don't know. I think Boom Pow is probably going to be picked more often in the... I don't know if it's going to be picked more often in the competitive scene, because you use Junkrat as kind of like a late game scaling. Like, he pokes down the objectives early, stalls out objectives, and then he's just this late game person. So yeah, this is a very tricky talent tier right now.
Yeah, it's strange for sure, but I'm getting hung up on Boom Pow as well. Now, granted, I was looking at Taste for Explosions thinking it was a nerf, so it was probably influencing that a little more, but I still think half the cooldown length, provided, I mean, there's the caveat if you have to hit a hero, so if you whiff, sorry.
But you could also, it's one of those abilities you can just leave there. You know, it's like you can set it down, and now it's a giant zoning tool. Like, you could at least put it down on like a bush that people need to walk through. Like, there's a few maps that I played them on the PTR that it's like you can put your traps in places that people have to walk through it. There's no choice. Like, people have to walk through it. And that's, I think, the thing that was kind of surprising for me is, it's like there's sometimes you just have to do it. People were saying when we get to the level 7 towns, I'll talk more about this, but
the place I absolutely hate them is I call them the peninsulas on Cursed Hollow. Those half circle walls that kind of curve around. They're near top right, bottom left. Putting a Junkrat trap there drives me up a wall.
Oh yeah, I was actually thinking, like, there's on Infernal Shrines. Each area, there's like 4 tiny spots you can come in from, and Junkrat can literally shut down 2 of them. He puts in one trap in one side, one trap in another side. You don't want to walk through the one that has the root trap, because you're going to get rooted and then you're going to get killed. And you don't want to walk through the side that has the knockback trap, because you're going to be sent right into the enemy team. And it was like, you could literally hold down 2 zones while you're doing the objective as a single hero. And that one is definitely one of them that I think about a lot. The other thing that's interesting about Boom Pow is, like, imagine the disruption on, like, if you try to fight an enemy team on a camp early. The fact that you can knock them all away once and place down the trap again before the camp's actually over to steal it, that's really good. Like, you could constantly be disrupting and splitting the enemies during camps. I think Junkrat could be used as early invades a lot with Boom Pow.
That's a good way to think about it. Yeah. It's like if you have a mind for setup, for getting everything up ahead of time. Yeah, you get essentially, it's like burst zoning. You get that first one off, and then you're ready to go again.
The other thing that's cool about Boom Pow is against divers. You know the problem with the level 13 Ripper Air, right? Ripper Air is an amazing talent. You get knocked really far back. You can really get away, go all over the place. But it only works if only Junkrat is hit. And against divers, a smart diver is going to be right on Junkrat, so that if Junkrat does get knocked away, you usually get knocked away as well. Probably not in the same exact direction, but in a pretty similar area. And then his cooldown's very long. But the cool part about Boom Pow is he gets that cooldown reduction while also hitting himself and an enemy. He doesn't get sent back as far, but he can still get that cooldown reduction. So it is something that's kind of interesting. I don't know. Level 4 is going to be a very difficult tier to decide.
Yeah, which I think that was the goal. So, I was once I saw that Put Some English on it had been removed at 1, I'm like, oh, okay, well, here we go. All of the popular talents at 1, 4, and 7 are probably going away or getting nerfed. And that's not really the case. Yeah. And then we get to level 7, and Bogged Down has been moved from 13 down to 7. The 13 is interesting with Junkrat because there's still like clear winners. There's a clear winner as far as talents, but if you look at stats websites, there is some talent diversity. 13 is where we start to see like a noteworthy amount of other picks. Bogged Down is the least popular, but still sees a percentage of picks, and now you can get it at level 7. Now, of course, it is going to be losing a little bit of its power as a result, but in this case, if you don't remember Bogged Down, it's a slow on mines. You get a slow on your mines. When it was at 13, currently in the live game, it's a 60% slow. After this patch hits, it's going down to level 7. It's going to be a 40% slow, but the duration is also being increased by half a second. You're getting a full 2.5 seconds as opposed to just a flat 2.
Yeah, and I think the biggest part about this being moved is it no longer competes with Ripper, and that you also have that cooldown reduction if you hit enemies or if you hit yourself. So if you use it on yourself, you get that cooldown reduction of 12 seconds. You hit it on the enemies, you get the cooldown reduction of 8 seconds if you're going to go that talent. So by moving it so it's not contested with its own ability, it suddenly gets a lot better. And I think that moving around talents a lot of times throws people off on how it can make some talents better because they don't compete with themselves anymore. And W build doesn't compete with W build anymore. So that's cool. I think it'll be interesting. I think there is the possibility of just a W build for people that are really good at the W on Junkrat to just disrupt the enemies the entire time. In fact, there's a small chance that he might be thrown in the solo lane, not as a damage hero, but instead as just a utility disruption. And so you throw him in the solo lane, he just has to survive. He doesn't have to do anything. And then when it comes to team fights, all he's doing is just constantly just... I've been using this scene a lot for a lot of things, but there's that scene in Lord of the Rings where the Sauron's just swinging his hammer and a bunch of enemies are just flying in the air every time.
That was like the first scene in Lord of the Rings. Yeah. I've been using that scene for a lot of analogies lately, but that's what's going to be happening. Is you might be drafting Junkrat for that, where you're just throwing bombs and the enemies are just, you know what I mean? And so he could be used as more of a utility pick now that he has lowered cooldowns than his W and also slows. And so that's kind of an idea. So that's where Bogged Down goes in my mind, is like you're knocking all the enemies all around, kind of doing mini horrifies every 8 seconds, right? I don't know. It's interesting. And then he's got the Big As, which is the new... it's not really changed, right? All they did was... Well, they added an armor debuff.
The armor debuff.
Yeah. This is historically the talent that makes the trap's radius 50% larger. It also has a damage increase, but if you're not looking at how much damage it's doing to you, you notice when this talent is taken just because you look at the radius and you go, oh, come on, how am I supposed to walk past that?
Exactly. So it's a big talent, reduces armor. This is going to be a good talent for... if you can get your team to coordinate and pick down a target. And same thing with the next talent. Sticky Wicket, it used to make it to where when you're no longer rooted, but instead you're slowed by 90% for 3 seconds, which was actually a really cool talent. And it had a really weird bug that I don't know if this is just a bug or if this is something that I just never noticed with other Junkrat talents, but for whatever reason on Sticky Wicket, it happened a lot more than others. If two people are right next to each other, when it gets hit, they both get slowed. And I don't know if that's something that all of his talents did that, where if two people were close enough to his trap, they would both get rooted. I'm not sure, but I've seen it happen a lot with Sticky Wicket, where two people get slowed at the same time. But either way, the new version of it no longer slows. It silences for 2.5 seconds. To give you guys an idea,
so it brings the root back. So they're rooted once again.
They're rooted once again. They just get silenced. A lot of people consider Stukov's root to be his actual ultimate ability, level 13 talent. A lot of the competitive scene says that that's his actual ultimate ability, to be able to root people and they're silenced at the same time. That's why I'm looking at Sticky Wicket going, this is like the best talent. But at the same time, a lot of people are like, it's not that good because people can just walk around traps. It's harder to land, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, there are places where no one can walk around traps. Like you can place them in a bush or in a area where it's the only entrance. And I think a lot of people misunderstand that a lot of tanks get their survivability from their abilities. So to be able to root and silence someone for 2.5 seconds is enough to kill a tank like a Nubarok. Where if he doesn't put his W out before he goes in, he has a small health bar and no spell armor anymore. Boom, dead in under 3 seconds. Some other tanks like EDC, it's like he gets his armor from using abilities. No armor, no using abilities means no armor. Dead 3 seconds.
It's also how he dodges abilities. Like how he dodges incoming abilities is from his abilities. You take that power slide away. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think the surprising part is against certain tanks, this is a death sentence. Against Genjis that are trying to dive in the back line, they don't have escapes, they don't have deflect, they don't have any of that. You literally just place the trap on yourself. He tries to dash through you, gets hit by it, he's silenced, he's dead. So Sticky Wicket, for me, I think everyone's sleeping on. Everyone's looking at as big as, oh, they have 10 less armor and 50% more damage. We just blow them up and it's all good.
Yeah, this is where I want to get like old man on my porch and remind everyone like this is not a single battleground game. And Junkrat historically has been a hero that is significantly stronger on certain battlegrounds than he is on others.
Exactly.
And so if you know, we had that conversation about Cursed Hollow just a few minutes ago, and you talked about, I think it was Infernal Shrines.
Mm-hmm.
You know, use that knowledge. Like if there are certainly battlegrounds where the trap is far more effective than it is on others.
I think some people just see like Alterac pass and go, oh, you can always just walk around a trap. It's like, no, not always. Like there are times where your tank has to eat that trap. And if you're playing against Joanna, it's very easy to eat a trap. But if you're playing against an ETC who just doesn't have the health to walk through a silence trap without using an ability first so he gets armor, there's going to be some insane areas. Not to mention, like, think about Mal'Ganis. Dude has like no way of getting into an objective if he gets locked down, and that's like his only engages are walk into fight. So if he uses E, you drop down a trap, you know, he gets locked down in silence, he's dead because he can't heal if he gets silenced. So fight around that trap, eventually he's going to hit that trap. Not to mention good Junkrats know how to knock the enemies into their traps. They will set up the ranges to where you can knock one into another trap. And it's like, go against some Mal'Ganis, get him a little low, knock him into your trap. Boom, he's silenced. He can't heal himself anymore. He's dead. And there's a lot of situations like that. So I think people are sleeping on Sticky Wicket. Big As, I still think it's very good. It's going to be great for burst comps, great for things like Jaina that can blow up enemies really quick. Dirty Trickster, there's either a bug with this talent or they're going to change it for the live version. There's a sentence in here. So what it says essentially is you increase the explosion radius of total mayhem, which is your passive that if you die,
your death
you drop down. Yeah, you drop down martyrdom of grenades, right? Mm-hmm. There's a clause in here. So it says when Junkrat's stunned, rooted, or damaged, while below 50% health, he uses total mayhem. Well, right now in PTR, that spot that says while below 50% health doesn't exist. If he gets stunned, rooted, or damaged by an enemy here, I misread this. If he gets stunned or rooted, he activates it. Or damaged by an enemy hero while below 50% health, he activates it. So if he's stunned or rooted, it just drops it.
Yeah.
So I was misreading it. The effect has a 12-second cooldown. So if you get stunned or rooted, well, what kept happening from what we noticed anyways is there was a fight where ETC slid onto Junkrat and then moshed. He dropped all the grenades and instantly killed the the ETC that tried to mosh. So it does have its purposes for sure. There's a lot of situations, especially against ETC, it's very good. Against a Nubarok, it's not bad because a lot of the CC that's going to be jumped onto Junkrat is going to be a tank that's using a CC to get to him. So it's kind of interesting. There's situations where it's really good and there's situations where it's not. But at the end of the day, I think Junkrat should be so far back that he doesn't get CC'd that I probably wouldn't use this talent. But I do think it could be a great talent for people learning Junkrat that don't really know the enemy tanks yet.
I think this is going to
be a really cool way to like have a safety against CC or really good tanks.
Yeah, we don't talk about learner talents very much, but I think that's exactly what this is. I think this is a really good time to introduce, because this is a brand new talent, right? The Dirty Trickster didn't exist before. It's coming in with this patch. Yeah. If we're taking away the level 1 that just grossly increases your range, we're all, whether we were playing Junkrat before or not, we're all now in this world where we're going to be in trying to land our auto attacks. We're closer to Junkrat than we've ever been before. And there's going to be a danger associated with that. And I think that Dirty Trickster is going to alleviate a lot of that danger. I'm also excited about kind of the window it opens up, like when you are dove upon. Because it's also taking damage. Like, you don't have to be stunned. Like, what if there's just an Illidan on you? Well, I mean, he's chasing you back and you're alone in a lane and this Illidan's about to kill you. Well, yeah, you're below 50%. He lands a hit. The bombs drop. If it's a smart Illidan, he should get away and prepare to re-engage you. But there, you now have a second of breathing room to actually compose yourself and probably pop yourself out of there with your own mind or something of that nature.
Yeah, it's an interesting talent, honestly. Like, I like the idea of divers diving in and then you just drop a whole bunch of bombs and then you sit there on the bombs as they're contemplating whether or not they want to keep fighting you. And then you can set up your W to get out in a direction opposite of them while they're sitting there waiting. So there was a question in chat that says, does this work on bosses? I'm going to test it out right now.
It shouldn't, because the text specifies enemy heroes.
Yeah, it shouldn't, but it says damaged by an enemy hero or stunned or rooted. So we'll see. Or it says stunned or rooted or damaged by an enemy hero. We don't know exactly where it is as far as that goes. So let me I'll just test it really quick. I'm already in the thing. I'll just hit boss really quick and get stunned.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's all an unbroken sentence. So I read stunned, rooted, or damaged by an enemy hero as like a single statement, meaning stunned by an enemy hero.
It's actually worded really ambiguous, and we'll talk about the rework talents being worded kind of weird when we get to Whitemane, because there's one particular talent that I've been kind of ranting about. How they have it worded is so ridiculous. But
well, now you know my pain as someone who also covers Hearthstone, because some of that card text is the most ambiguous insanity I have ever read.
So I worked with one of the people who I was friends with one of the people who worked on Magic on their text, and he said how their text had to evolve to a point where they have a separate rule book on how they're supposed to handle text, because there was so many random confusion about the text. So they have this whole rule book for it. And we both went and played Hearthstone together. And he's like, they need this rule book because there are way too many Hearthstone things that can go either or. And you have to play it to just understand how it's worded. And that's where we're at for that. So yes, you do trigger the stun off of boss stuns.
Okay.
Just that is the final verdict on that.
Okay. So then you can also, you would assume that the root would also cause the same thing.
Mm-hmm. So that's that. So new level 10s. Nothing changed on their level 10s. I don't know why I've had 5 people now tell me that they reduced Rocket Ride's cooldown. I feel like they just didn't know Rocket Ride. They did do something to Rocket Ride though. They increased its movement speed by 10% because it was going slower than actual speed. Like, it was going slower than it was before because everyone got sped up. But that's not really a buff. That's more of just fixing it for the times. But everything.
Yeah. They also increased its impact damage. But
did they? I'm like reading am I crazy, or did they do this earlier?
The patch notes say impact damage increase from 750 to 815.
On his ult?
Yeah, Rocket Ride.
Okay.
Yeah. Cooldown also went down by 5 seconds on Riptire. I didn't include it in the notes because I'm like, this is really minor stuff. In the grand scheme of things.
You cut it out of the notes. I was looking at the notes, and it's like it goes from level 4 or it goes from level 7 to 13, and I was like, I'm not seeing anything different. But
no. These are just highlights.
Cool. All right.
Yeah.
I'm not too worried about 10s. 13s. We talked about 13s already a little bit, how Ripper Air and Bombs Away. And the only thing that I'll add to this really is the Trap talent got moved to 13 and no longer has a quest, the Trap quest talent where you could get 3 traps out. Now it's only 2 traps, reduces the trap cooldown by 5 seconds, and it doesn't require a quest anymore. Pretty nice. Is this the build? Probably not. Ripper Air, very good for W build. Bombs Away, amazing for Q auto build right now. Gotta trap them all. I don't know exactly where this is going to fit unless there's that utility type style that might sneak out in competitive, but I feel like Ripper Air is going to be the go-to for that. And to have 1 extra trap instead of getting Ripper Air does not seem worth it to me. I feel like if you're being picked up to be a utility hero, you need that Ripper Air to get around. And if you're being picked up as the damage dealer, you need Bombs Away. More basic attack range, more damage on your Q. You have to get Bombs Away for damage. You have to get Ripper Air for utility. And gotta trap them all. Sad, but I don't think this talent's going to be used very much. I could be wrong. I'm wrong all the time, but could be wrong.
It happens. This is previewing changes to games in a nutshell. It's just like, well, this is what I think, but this is based off of no statistics. So yeah.
So it'll definitely be a weird one. Level 16.
Again, as far as Junkrat, like overall, I think the real meat of this rework is in level 1, 4, and 7 talents. And kind of everything from 10 down is about the same. 16's untouched. Yeah, 16's untouched. Level 20, fascinating. And we'll go through it quick. There's 2 major changes. Puckish Scamp was his ult before that reduced his it was his Rocket Ride's thing. It reduced his cooldown of his Rocket Ride. That's gone. If you pick Rocket Ride, your upgrade now makes it to where you alternate between ultimates. Each ultimate has a separate cooldown. So when you use Rocket Ride, you then get Riptire. Then when you use Riptire, you get Rocket Ride. They both share different cooldowns. I think it's kind of cool, but you have to pick Rocket Ride from level 10 all the way to 20. Rocket Ride, almost consistently is considered a bad ult by a lot of the competitive scene because you have to leave the fight. So if you find an opportunity where you need to burst down someone, if you burst down someone, you just made it a 1-to-1 trade if you're using Rocket Ride, because now you're out of the fight and so are they. You shouldn't ever have to make that decision of making it a 1-to-1 trade. But if you use Riptire, you can get a kill and then stay in the fight and immediately get 2 more kills. And that's, I guess, the reason why everyone in the competitive scene doesn't really like Rocket Ride. So if you're willing to take an ult that people don't really like to then get double ult, the double ult possibility is really good. If you can start with Tire, you Tire, get a kill, and then you Rocket Ride, get a kill, and suddenly you're making a 1-for-2 trade and doing just a lot of AoE damage. That's where it can be really, really good. I think it's cool. I don't think it's a go-to. I don't know why everyone's really freaking out about this, because I don't think it's a go-to. As far as the competitive scene, I think Cannonball is still going to be the way to go. But there is something kind of fascinating. Have you messed around with I Hate Waiting? No, but I want to.
It's hilarious. I don't think it's going to be meta. And my reason for it is because with Ripper Air, you can still be able to triple soak lanes because you move around that fast. You can move over walls that fast.
Yeah. And for the audio, only audio.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Yeah. For the audience, in case you don't have the notes in front of you, I Hate Waiting is a brand new level 20 talent in which Junkrat always rides his rocket mount, and it moves at an additional 150% movement speed, but your mount cooldown is increased to 12 seconds.
Yes. So your mount is replaced with a giant rocket, and that giant rocket. So a regular mount moves at 30% increased speed. This rocket moves at 150% increased speed. I think a lot of people are looking at this going, this is a global. Junkrat's now a global. But you need to remember Ariel for a second and realize that she has a level 20 global talent that is the worst talent. And it's because once you're level 20, you should be with your group at all times. So to have a global after 20 usually isn't worth it, because normally you use a global to soak experience during objectives and then join when you need to. So to have this at 20 isn't that valuable. If this was a level 10 talent, I think it might be useful. The fact that this is a level 20 talent is very, very difficult to get value out of. And to increase your mount cooldown is also tricky because it means you can't double soak lanes anymore with that mount. It's really fun. It's absolutely hilarious. I don't think it's going to be meta. I think we're still going to be seeing Cannonball 90% of the time.
And it wasn't even,
boring,
and it wasn't adjusted at all. It wasn't nerfed. It wasn't buffed. Cannonball is exactly the same.
Just unchanged.
Yeah.
So on to Whitemane,
yeah. Well, before we do that, I want to thank the folks supporting us over at patreon.com/ITN. Yeah, because they also help pay you. We pay you for your time.
Definitely.
It's because of the patrons. So folks, if you enjoy what we do here at Into the Nexus and you want to support us, patreon.com/ITN is the way to do so. You get access to all kinds of perks, like being able to sign up for the Patron Bonanza games, where once a month we get together, we go into unranked late on Thursday nights after we're done recording the podcast and play a bunch of games with our patrons. You get access to the patron-only Discord, which we're going to have questions later on in the show that we pulled from the Discord and other such things. So go check it out, patreon.com/ITN. On this episode, we want to thank some of our newer patrons in the order that they signed up. We usually do about 3 an episode. So Clinton DL is your last 2 initials, Nick C, and Gruyere, no last name given. Thank you so much for supporting the program. We really appreciate it. And again,
yeah. And Chris K, he's one of the producers, right?
Yes.
And that's Argy, right?
I don't know his handle.
Okay. I think that's Argy. Right on. Appreciate it. That he seriously.
Is it Argy?
All of the I don't know. Argy's on Twitter, and I believe his name. So his handle's Argy on Twitter, but if you type in Argy on Twitter, it says Chris K. So I think that's him. Either way, thank you all the Patreon people for ITN. You guys should all do that. I did just pop in to the Discord, so I may sneak in and play some games with people on the Patreon. So if I don't know if that's any extra incentive, but I don't know if it's a reward or a detriment to be able to play with me. But let's because sometimes if we're not playing serious, you never know. We're going race car to Haka all game.
You and I played a casual game yesterday together, and you got recognized and I didn't, and I was like, oh.
It happens here and there, but yeah, it's kind of funny. But yeah.
Well, let's talk about the Whitemane rework, because there was a lot more changes on the base level with Whitemane, which always perks up my eyeballs. I'm like, oh, that means this hero is going to be way different right out the gate, no matter how I build the hero. And in Whitemane's case, much like Junkrat, a lot of nerfs across the base kit. Damage is down from 60 to 55. That's slightly more than an 8% damage nerf. And then we get into basic abilities. Desperate Plea got a buff to its range, went from 7.5 up to a straight 8 on the range, but the mana cost went up from 30 to 45. That's a 50% increase to the cost of the mana on Desperate Plea. That is not efficient at all. However, compounding mana cost went down from 60 to 45, but again, if you're like me and you like your percentages, the cost went up by 50%. The compounding mana cost was discounted by only 25%. So it's still not.
So for everyone, that means that your first heal is going to cost more mana, your second heal is going to cost the same mana, and your third heal is going to cost less mana. Just for that.
Yeah, it's going to sting a little bit right out the gate. Inquisition had a damage reduction, 6% even from 350 down to 329. Searing Lash got a range reduction. The 0.5 range that went to Desperate Plea, well, it got taken off of Searing Lash.
And that one feels pretty bad. Like you think it's not a big deal unless you've been playing a lot of Whitemane and then you go and play it and you're starting to miss all your E's. That one feels pretty bad, but you'll get used to it.
Yeah, or it just, it hits slightly later and you're like, oh, I feel really uncomfortable being this close to my Searing Lash target.
Yes, it's interesting.
Yeah, also the damage is down on Searing Lash by 8.5%.
8.5%.
Yeah.
The numbers didn't look so scary until you put percentages next to them.
This is why I always look up percentages, especially when anything on a base kit is adjusted. But Clemency is now available baseline. It's also now costs 75 mana. So that's a noteworthy change.
It is. Yes. It's a weird one. So those are the baseline changes. I will say, so for the people that see the auto attack damage nerf, do not worry about that. If you liked auto attacking on Whitemane, you just wait, because there are some auto attack talents for you.
Yeah, you mentioned on your Whitemane video that usually in Heroes of the Storm, if you look at some patch changes, you look at a hero and you see damage being taken away, it usually means they're going to get nutty with talents down the line.
And this is what happened. So I'm going to give a little bit of like foreshadowing, I guess, that I have played a lot of this Whitemane on PTR. Whitemane was one of my favorite heroes at the release. And even when they nerfed her Q build, still one of my favorite heroes. They nerfed the W build, still really liked her in E build. And then E build was just kind of feast or famine, so I just didn't play her that much. I played her a lot. She has one build that is really scary. But I will say she feels a little weird to play now.
Yeah, because she's causing quite the stir with the community. You go on the Reddit, one of the most popular threads right now is kind of denouncing this Whitemane rework. Even got a blue reply from Daybringer. I'm just going to jump around our notes for a second, because since you're talking about how much you've played, I'm really glad you're here today, because I know you soaked so much time into Whitemane. Let's take a second and talk about the community reaction, because they're not stoked. Daybringer got into the Heroes of the Storm thread and said, hey, this is by design. They wanted to adjust her mana juggling gameplay loop. They wanted to remove and replace her level 4 talents, and they wanted to update her talent tree because they're once again chasing build diversity. We know this is something that's important for the team. And then, Daybringer kind of talked about the challenges of doing reworks in general, and with Whitemane saying that since her inception, this talent tier has single-handedly undermined her mana management, which was her original core design pillar and also her main skill ceiling driver. So the fact that her ability to talent into not having to worry about mana so much is gone, and that causing such a stir with the community. I mean, Daybringer got in here and basically said straight up, yeah, that was our goal. It's a problem. We don't want her to be able to not worry about mana.
It's tricky. Like I actually really liked the juggle. I thought it was a lot of fun, and it kind of set the bad Whitemanes out from the good Whitemanes. If you saw Whitemane run out of mana, you're like, oh, they need to work on that. That's their one thing that they need to fix on Whitemane, because she shouldn't be running out of mana. Or you just had a crazy fight and she had to use her extra mana. It put her on like a 12-second window of a good Whitemane is going to plan everything out to where, as long as the fights aren't going too crazy, she's going to have infinite mana. And I thought that was cool. Her healing outside of fights was still a little weird, because it was like a couple heals and clemency. You can only heal one person at a time, really. 2 small heals and then heals, like keep that person up. Then they nerfed it, and then she just left the meta completely. So I figured they would give her different ways of getting mana back, or just ditch the whole mana gimmick in general, like all of her mana related things. Her desperation, ditch the whole thing. Give her a completely different feel. And it's weird that they left desperation but gave her 0 ways to get her mana back, outside of like popping an ult. And it's kind of strange. So she feels really, really feast or famine right now. If you are winning, she dominates in every build, and especially so in the auto attack build. I mean, I wanted to do the video. So every time there's a I always go into try mode. I look at all the talents first. I make a couple of predictions. I play around a little bit, and then I go and make my video talking about all the talents. That's usually how it plays out. And then I post them. But I was like, I made those videos, and I'm like, I'm not going to post these yet. I want to go play out the characters, and then I want to put in the description what I found about them. Before I knew it, I had played Whitemane for 9 hours. And I was like, I tried all of her builds, and I found the auto attack build is insanely strong. If you can't kill them in the initial like 2 to 3 seconds of a fight, you will not be able to kill anyone on Whitemane's team. That's how strong it is. And it's like, it's really, really insane.
Wow.
But all of her other builds are like non-existent. They're meant to be more healing, and they just you can't out heal even a Rhaegar in the other builds. But in the auto attack build, every game I was ending with over 100,000 healing, and and every game, if we didn't get instantly bursted, no one would die. And you have your ult to give 40 armor to everyone, so nobody's getting bursted. So it's really weird. It's a weird feeling. But let's get into the talents so we can talk about it a little bit, and we'll kind of go from there.
Yeah. I mean, some of the bigger highlights is that High Inquisitor has been removed. That's kind of the lightning rod for a lot of the community discussion. Martyrdom was moved to level 4 from level 1. We just spent a lot of time on Junkrat talking about talents being moved down, but Martyrdom is actually being moved up. Off of the level 1.
Yeah.
To the next talent tier.
Yeah, it's she got a lot of major changes. So just to give you guys an idea, so Martyrdom was Desperate Please healing is increased. Well, it's actually been changed, right? It's Desperate Please healing was just increased before. Now it's increased for every zeal that you have out. So if you have like 5 zeal out and use Desperate Plea, you're going to be doing 60% more healing, 10%, and then 10% more for each zeal that you have. And then Indulgence is kind of the same way. So Indulgence is a movement speed one. But pretty much the auto attack build is kind of the go-to. I don't know. It's really weird. They do have a cool talent at level 1, though. If you're not going the auto attack build, Inquisitor's Prayer. Each hero that you hit with your lash increases your health by 3 and your mana by 2 permanently. No cap. Heroes hit with the second one counts as 2 hits. I played around with this in a couple of games, and even against like the most heavy frontline, the most I was getting per game was 100 stacks, which was about 300 health, 200 mana. It's enough to cast a couple extra heals, and it's enough to survive like a little bit more burst, but don't expect to have more than 3 stacks. I was going against a team comp that ran a tank, a diva, and a Lost Vikings. You better believe I got the most stacks in that game than I would ever get. Hitting 3 Vikings, a diva, and a tank, and it was a Muradin. There's no comp you're going to get more stacks. The game went to about level 16, and I got 100 stacks. Don't ever expect more than that. So it's interesting. It's kind of cool, but I don't know if it's enough to separate you from just going the auto attack build. But that's really your only way of getting mana in any other build, is just to increase your mana size to where you can get away with that. Also, Fanatical Power. Can I just read this out and see if anyone can explain what this actually means?
Yeah, go for it.
So I know what this means, but let's read it out.
Level 20 now, been moved from 7.
It's so level 7, it used to be the thing that increased your spell damage by 50% and it reduced your armor by 25. That was how you did like the blow up on Whitemane, was with that talent. There's really no 100-0 on Whitemane anymore. That's relevant. Fanatical Power. Activate to cast a permanent Desperate Prayer. If you guys were curious about what Desperate Prayer is, it's Anduin's level 20 talent. Why it's worded in Whitemane, who knows?
Are you looking at it in game?
I am, yes.
Okay, because in the patch notes it says permanent zeal.
Does it?
Yes.
Okay.
That makes way more sense.
That makes way more sense. Permanent zeal is what it actually does. But in game it says Desperate Prayer, which is an Anduin ability. Not even Desperate Plea, which is her ability. And Desperate Plea wouldn't even make sense because it's a castable instant thing with not a... So yeah, Permanent Zeal is what it actually does, but it's worded really wild. Only can be casted once and has a global cast range. So you could be a mile away from someone, put a Zeal on them, and then start dealing damage to enemies and heal that person a mile away. It's really cool. But why are you a mile away from someone on Whitemane? So it's great with divers because you can put it on a Greymane and then you can heal your tanks while your Greymane's just like in the middle of their team. So it's kind of neat. It's got a 30-second cooldown, so you can't just keep bouncing it around like a Whitemane or like a Ariel hat. But I like it. I think it's a really powerful talent. I think it's better than a lot of the other ones, unless you're going like the one ult that you need to upgrade. But otherwise, it's really cool.
We need to get on the PTR, and we just need to do a split lane death march on some keeps. I'll go on Zagara, you go on Whitemane, you march with the team, and I'll off lane. How's that sound?
Yeah, no, that works. It was funny because like there were situations where I would put it on like a tank and then they would just never die. And then there were times where I told my friend, I was like, okay, here, you've got this now. You're never going to die. And then he ran into combat, instantly died. And he goes, you said I would never die. And I said, I'm nowhere near an enemy to deal damage to. He goes, oh, you didn't clarify with that. You just said I would never die. And I was like, okay, you'll never die as long as I'm fighting something.
You have a very literal friend, NotParadox.
Yeah, it was. I probably shouldn't say that he's a grandmaster player. Yeah.
Listen, we all have blinders on for certain heroes.
Yeah. So she's interesting right now. This is gonna sound really bad. And normally I'm like always for reworks. Like I like the Junkrat rework. I think it's really fascinating. And I really wanted a Whitemane rework. I just never expected them to do it. As bad as it sounds, I hope they rework her again. And my reason for it is because she has one build. Honestly, like I've played every single thing. There's no way around it. She has one build, and the build is very feast or famine. And that's, I hate to say it, I'm never going to be the person, like, I never want to be the person that sees a rework and goes, we need another rework. I literally have played this for 9 hours. I've been a Whitemane main. Sounds weird. This doesn't feel fun to play. And it feels too much like Tyrande. Like, you have to be auto-attacking to get value, except for it's worse than Tyrande because Tyrande can safely auto-attack minions to get value. Whitemane has to auto-attack heroes. And if you don't auto-attack heroes, you are playing her inefficiently. And if you are attacking heroes, you're at risk. And if you're lower level, you're never going to heal anything because you can't safely auto-attack heroes being down a tier. And if you're above levels, the enemies will have no chance of killing anyone on your team because it's that strong.
I almost asked when you first mentioned it, when you're like, oh, there's one build and it's auto-attack. I was going to ask you, I'm like, well, do you think that's a bad thing? But I stopped because I'm like, I think the answer is yes. I think I know the answer to this.
It really feels bad to play. I mean, for people that loved Tyrande's playstyle when you're attacking enemy heroes, like Tyrande has that talent at 16 that's like every time you attack an enemy hero, you get increased damage. Imagine that, but a healing version of that, where the more you're attacking enemy heroes, the more healing everyone's getting. But do you see how that talent's like never picked in the competitive scene? Because if you're attacking heroes that often, you're going to get blown up. And I think that's the problem that Whitemane's in right now is she doesn't have a competitive build. And normally that's okay as long as she's fun to play, because she was fun to play before when you had infinite mana. It wasn't competitive. She had a 0% win rate once they nerfed Q build in the competitive scene. But it was fun to play. You were Q. Oh, do I want to like deal damage to the enemy now? Or do I just want to reset my mana on? Like, I thought that was fun to play until they nerfed it. But that's subjective. What's fun to play is subjective. This does not feel fun for me. And I can immediately tell it's not going to be competitive, and it's going to be absolutely pub stompy in Storm League. And only having one build is weird. I hate to say it, and I don't ever want to be the negative Nancy. I hope they rework her again. But that's where I'm going to leave it. I will have fun doing auto attack build in Storm League. But to me, it just feels like I'm playing Tyrande, but a more risky Tyrande. And people are saying it's the mix of three heroes. They say it's Tyrande's auto attack playstyle with Malfurion's minigame of keeping Q on as many people as possible while also having Uther's mana cost. That's what they say. They're like, it's literally Tyrande's playstyle mixed with Malfurion's playstyle mixed with the mana of Uther, to where like
none of the safety because you're having to attack.
Yeah. You have to like have the risk of you have the risk of all three of those heroes. The reward of if everything works out perfectly for you and no one's attacking you, that you automatically win every team fight. But you have the risk of all of those heroes and the spinning the plates of all of those heroes. And it's just it's stressful to play, and it just feels like it's weird. It's really weird. And like there's this other weird aspect of uninteractive gameplay, especially in like the 1v1 Whitemane. I put heals on everyone on my team, and the enemy Whitemane put heals on everyone on their team, and we both went to a different lane and auto attacked each other, and we fought for literally, I'm not even kidding, 2.5 minutes straight, and no one died. And we were in our healers were in completely different lanes, auto attacking each other.
So where do you think lies the biggest issue? Do you think it's that? Do you think it's an error to kind of look at Whitemane and what worked before and say, oh, mana being a non-issue for her is not our goal? Do you think that's the problem? Do you think just desperation in general is maybe a weird...
I feel like they don't know what the problem is, and I feel like we don't know what the problem is. I personally didn't think there was anything wrong with infinite mana as long as your win rates weren't stupid high, because that was a gimmick of the hero. Like look at a lot of like we have manaless heroes. We have
Ariel.
Morales, right?
Yeah.
We have Ariel. We have heroes that don't have mana that have another gimmick for it. Her gimmick was a minigame. Whether you like the minigame or not, I thought they were going to make the minigame baseline because it was fun. Everyone who I talked to, once they got the minigame down, it was fun. It was entertaining. You had something to do other than just like be a heal bot or be an auto attack bot, because right now there's a lot of healers that are just auto attack bots. Arguably, if you go down the healer list of their best builds, Tyrande, auto attack related. Malfurion, his level 1 auto attack talent, highest win rate, highest popularity. You've got Uther, his highest win rate, auto attack. Karazim, auto attack. Lieutenant Morales, auto attack. Highest win rate for Ariel, auto attack talent. Stukov, highest win rate, auto attack. Lucio just got auto attack talents to bring back his man and give him range. Like Anduin, he has half of his build is related to auto attacking. So it feels like they're almost trying to like make every healer that's their gimmick is auto attacking. I don't really know if that's the direction that they want the healers to go, but that's where it kind of feels like they're almost pushing everyone to be. And I think that's where they thought the problem was, is they're like, instead of her minigame being something unique to her minigame is going to be the same as Anduin, as Morales, as Tyrande, as Malfurion, as all these other heroes. It's kind of weird.
It reminds me of the early days of questing. Once they kind of figured questing out, it felt like every hero was getting quest talents. And then they started recently coming away from
kind of calming down a little bit.
Yes.
I liked the idea of quest talents, and I thought they were really fun when they came out, until they were just weird. Like, until you either had to do something that you shouldn't be doing on that hero to complete it, or that they were just quests that you would just naturally complete on accident. Like, that's when it started getting a little weird. I loved Echo of Elements. I still think that's one of the best designed quests ever, because it's like, it's something that if you're good at it, you can complete it quickly, and then it changes your playstyle afterwards. I think that's a great quest. Then there are quests like Fetid Touch, which I despise. It teaches people to use Stukov's W at wrong times. And so there's quests that I love and quests that I just absolutely despise. But putting that aside.
So AA overall on supports, I mean, it's something that we've spent a lot of time on the show trying to coerce supports to do. Saying, yes, your support. Yes, your job is to keep the team alive. However, you have an auto attack. You can bring extra damage to the fight.
Yes.
So make sure you do it. Chatroom's bringing it up right now that they kind of look at what you just said and this trend of auto attack directed support changes. And do you think this is 100% intentional? Do you think this is a trend that they want to push because they purposely want to make supports get out of the back line, take a step up, take a risk, and open up the chance for more plays against them?
I think there's like 3 directions that I feel like I could go, right? There's one like that Junkrat talent that I said, where it's showing you that you can be closer range. And then if you get CC'd, you're not as punished, which could be good and could be bad. I mean, psychologically, if you get rewarded for doing something bad, you're going to keep doing something bad. So on Junkrat, if you get CC'd and you get a kill, you're going to keep being in a bad position. So that talent could be good or bad. It could be good because it makes it to where new players don't get punished as bad, but it could be bad because it could encourage new players to be in bad positions. Then you have the auto attack talent there that encourages you to auto attack and get more value, but he's also a damage dealer. You should be doing that anyways. It's a great design to teach people that you should be doing that anyways. On the other hand, is a hero that doesn't have any auto attack talents that are actually meta right now, but learning when you should be auto attacking on a support to add extra damage and when you shouldn't is something that can allow you to take that next step from being a good support to a great support. But when they force you to auto attack on supports, and that's your best way to heal, it starts creating this problem of, well, Joanna went from being an okay tank to, hey, I could turn off your entire team's healing by pressing one button. And so then it makes it to where, oh, well, now we can't play certain healers against Joanna, and Joanna's already the best for this, Joanna's the best for this. And instead of them just like making it to where there's more healers that have more dynamic ways, like I feel like every healer should have a dynamic way of healing, right? I think one of my favorite ideas was there was this game that came out and they really dumbly advertised as the killer of World of Warcraft called Rift. And Rift had 4 healing classes, right? And each Rift. Healing class healed in a very, very different way. There was a warrior healing class that shouted at people, and they were able to create these zones and these different areas, and that's how they healed. Was they had these different zones that healed in different ways. So you might throw one zone that healed like by spreading out the damage that everyone took and then using AoE shouts to heal them back up. One zone that made it so you'd put that on the tank, right? So the tank took less damage because it would spread to all the melee. Then you use AoE healing. Then you had one zone that would just heal like one specific target in a very small zone. And you could like, then there was another healer that healed themselves and took damage away from the enemies. Then there was another healer that healed based off the damage they dealt, and there was a healer that just healed like a standard healer. That was, I think, the best design where everyone healed in different ways. It doesn't feel unique when you're like, oh, we're going to get a lot of auto attacks this game. Let's throw Tirana in there. But now it's like, oh, we're going to get a lot of auto attacks this game. That's 75% of the healing roster. It feels like you could have them all different. And that's why I think I liked Whitemane so much, is that little mini game for healing was completely different from anyone else. And it was like, oh, it was a great change to that. It wasn't overpowered. I mean, we checked HOTS logs before she got that nerf on the W. She had a 48% win rate. And we also checked the competitive scene. I've been watching competitive scene ever since they nerfed Q build. She never got a single win in the competitive scene after the Q build was nerfed, even with infinite mana. So was it wrong to remove that? I don't know. Was it wrong to nerf the infinite mana? I don't know. But it made her unique, and I feel like that's what's bothering me the most about this. Is she strong right now? Yes. Her auto attack build is very strong. But it hurts me that she's just feels the same as all the other healers now. And I feel like I just wish they were more unique. They felt more unique. Not all the same. I'm great at stutter stepping, and I feel like that's the direction they're going. And let's get back to the question that you asked, which is forcing everyone to auto attack on supports. I feel like they should encourage it by teaching people that you should be doing this. But at the same time, this is the reason why Anduin is struggling right now. Is he has all these auto attack talents, and he keeps getting in the position where he's auto attacking, and suddenly Leap of Faith sucks because you're right there next to the person who needs to get leaped. You're standing right next to your ranged DPS to auto attack. Your ranged DPS gets dove on, and then you can't leap them anywhere because you're in a position that's bad. But you feel encouraged to be there because all of your talents that you're picking are auto attack, which is why I keep encouraging people: don't take the auto attack talents, take the W talents, and then stay at a further range away to where you can actually leap your team away and save them, not leap them 2 inches away from you and you both die. But it's so hard to teach that because they're encouraging these auto attack builds. And it's disheartening when a lot of these talents, yes, you should be auto attacking more. You should be, especially in the early game when no one has all the talents to burst you, when no one has the damage to blow people up, no one has the utility. You should be learning that you should be able to play more aggressive in the early game as a support. And then as you go on, I say it's kind of like Rhaegar. Rhaegar at level 1 is a completely different hero from Rhaegar at level 16. Rhaegar at level 1 is someone that you should be dog biting every time that it's up to apply more damage, to do more burst, to play like a bruiser. At level 16, you can't play like a bruiser because you should be in the back only going up to root everyone, and then going and healing people, and then cleansing people, and ancestral, and all that. Like, he's a completely different hero. And that's maybe why I like Rhaegar so much, is he's 2 different heroes in one game. And it's super cool. Alex Straza,
that's
look
always
at her
been
healing.
a big, I find, attraction to MOBAs in general. Is from, you have one game, you get to let's use Heroes of the Storm as an example because it's the game we're talking about. you get up to level 16, level 20, game ends, next game, you're back to level 1. You have to play a different game again. You have to remember what the beginning of the previous game was like. You're not going in with what you had at the end of the previous game. And if things stay the same throughout the entire game, I think it's fine if a few heroes are like that. If, you know, I don't want to get into a conversation about the difficulty that is assigned to every hero in Heroes of the Storm, and whether we agree with that or not. But if heroes that we would consider starter heroes or lower difficulty heroes, I think it's okay if those exist. And there are a few heroes in this game that don't change particularly drastically. But I do think the majority of this roster in this game should.
Yeah, seriously. I love and that's the thing, is like most changes, I never tell, like when we got the experience changes, someone was like, do you agree or disagree with that? And I said, for me, it's not about agreeing or disagreeing. It's how can I adapt to this? How can I abuse this? That's literally what happened when they did the experience changes. In fact, we talked about this on this podcast. I said, I don't agree or disagree, but I've got some cool ideas. And so you change your way around it. And most reworks is the same way. I saw the Junkrat rework. I don't agree or disagree, but I've got a lot of ideas.
Right. Kyle always talks about it as this opportunity to learn, or the joy of a new puzzle. Mm-hmm. It's so much a core of him and kind of how he digests games that get constant updates. And I like that. And it seems, well, you know, we're getting kind of philosophical here, but I think I like it so much because it seems so counter to what I see around the web, whether it's, you know, upvote culture or outrage culture or whatever, what have you. But you know, this seems to be a pretty binary look at things when you kind of look at the surface level of internet discussion.
Oh yeah.
But you and Kyle always kind of look at this like, well, this is how it is. How do we play now? What's the new right way to do this? Instead of sitting there going and saying, I don't like this. So, and I can see you struggling. I find this fascinating. I can see you struggling with the Whitemane thing because you're kind of in this position where you're like, yeah, it's kind of forcing me to not be that person. You know.
Well, I'm looking at Whitemane going, while I normally want, yeah, exactly. It's like I normally adapt and I see something and I'm like, oh, I want to try this out. I want to try this out. Can't go my old build anymore, but I've got these 5 other builds. With Whitemane, I'm looking at this going, I'm just gonna play Tyrande. You know, like she literally is. I literally look at this hero and I go, it's the same play style. Why would I play that, which won't be competitive because she's gonna get jumped on, when I can play Tyrande, who can attack walls or minions slightly outside of the fight, get her same value. I mean, she's not going to be as AoE healing as Whitemane is. She's not going to be as much healing, but in the current competitive meta, blowing up someone in 2 seconds is worth way more than being able to AoE heal people for a long time. So in Storm League, I think that Whitemane's auto attack build will be better, but they feel exactly the same. And I think that's the biggest issue for me is I go from having a hero that had a fun mini game to a hero that plays exactly like another hero. And that's my biggest complaint about it is it's not that I'm going from I need to adapt, which I do. I still need to adapt to it. But it's more of we're taking a unique hero and turning them into another hero. And that's my biggest, it's a design problem that I'm upset about, not a balance problem. It's not a where they're going to be because they weren't in the meta before and they're still not going to be in the meta for the competitive scene. So I'm not bothered by that. I'm bothered by the design choice. But putting all of that aside, what you mentioned is the exact reason why I like that. That's my one thing that I love more about Hearthstone than Magic the Gathering is that they will be able to change cards. They can actually like physically change cards. I had a deck. I had the Get In There deck. Do you remember the Get In There deck? It was a warrior deck
in there
that get in here.
Are you talking about the Patron Warrior?
Yes.
Oh,
because
okay.
They would always say, "Get in here, get in
everybody,
here, get in
everyone,
here.
Get in here." Yeah. Are you like one of? It was the closest thing we've seen to the correct deck to play in the history of Hearthstone. But
it was
only if you could play it correctly. It was one of the hardest decks to pilot correctly, and also in the history of the game. And then it got nerfed.
What I loved about that deck was that it brought in a lot of ideas of building a deck about taking damage. So that even when Patron got nerfed to the ground, people just replaced Patron in a couple cards with cards that that took damage, and we saw another meta deck rise up right afterward that people didn't think about, and none of those other cards were changed. And it came out of nowhere, and we had this new meta of damage your own minions. And now, I mean, those types of cards come out all the time. There's whole decks based off of taking having your minions take damage. But it's such a cool concept that people adapted, learned from a cool deck that came out of nowhere, and now we have this cool deck. And the same thing just happened in Magic, actually. There was a deck called Eggs that won a tournament a long time ago, and they banned a bunch of the cards, so it didn't work anymore. And then they just brought out a card that people are calling the Queen of Eggs, because it creates those eggs. And it's just fascinating that we have, it's fun when people come up with like a new archetype based off of something that they learned, and then that gets nerfed and they come up with a new thing. So it's like, adapting is fun. It's just that sometimes, like, there's some situations where it's rough. But, but yeah.
You know, frankly, sometimes the mark can be missed. I think that overall, especially this year, especially considering kind of how we started this year off with Heroes of the Storm, that the game has been overall really healthy, surprisingly healthy. I've been very happy with the majority of the changes that they've made in this game this year. And so, like, they're going to miss the mark at some point, right? So if this does land, if we finally get to look at statistics from thousands of games played from way more players than just ourselves, and come to the same conclusion, it does turn out, oh yeah, AA is the only way to go on this hero. It's the only way to build it, make it work. It's snowbally as hell, and it's not competitive. You know, it's the kind of thing where Heroes is not the kind of game where I kind of get drawn into like this whirlpool of despair when I see something like this, because I'm like, yeah, well, the game is constantly updated. Like, they constantly make changes. And yeah, sometimes, maybe it takes 2, 3 weeks, 4 weeks longer than we wish it would. But it still gets taken care of pretty quickly. And to transfer us out of this conversation about Whitemane, but stay on the same point, and to prove my point, let's talk about Shadow Fissure. Because if we want to talk about, maybe missing the mark a little bit, Shadow Fissure is finally getting addressed. Also, in the
as it should.
Yes, absolutely. So hitting an enemy hero is no longer going to instantly reset the cooldown of Shadow Fissure. It instead sets it to a 1.5 second cooldown. Well, not a cooldown, but it is a 1.5 second gap.
Yes, and I thought it was strange that they called this a bug fix, but yeah, it's a hard nerf, and it's deserved. And honestly, props to the balance team
was this thrown under bug fix?
It was, for some reason.
Oh, I didn't even notice. Oh, you know what? That makes total sense, because I wasn't looking at headings. I was just scrolling through, and I saw, oh, Shadow Fissure, cool. But then I was sitting there, I'm like, why isn't there a Kel'Thuzad like clickable link up with Whitemane and Junkrat?
I have no idea. Doesn't matter, honestly. It's a nerf. Everyone could agree that it's a nerf. It's a well-needed nerf, and it is in my honest opinion, it's a great answer. So a lot of times when this is actually kind of a big problem that I have when someone comes up with an idea for a hero and then everyone says, oh, that's busted. It's like, no, you can balance it. Just because they came up with an idea, like one person came up with an idea in my Discord and they're like, why can't Artenis stop his swap by pressing W on the target? So he goes forward, presses W, and then he hits them. And everyone's like, that would be overpowered. I'm like, but that might be interesting. Let's talk about it. Let's balance based off of it, and let's run with it. And this is an example of that. They came up with an idea of, let's move his level 20 down to level 10. And then we realized it was busted, but they're like, well, let's work with it. Let's figure it out and let's go with it, because it was fun. It was just busted. Now we have it's fun and hopefully less busted.
Yeah, and also and now we can see the knob. Like, if they're going to turn anything now, it's probably going to be that window on the cooldown. So now it's 1.5 seconds. If this turns out to still be too strong, maybe it's 2 seconds, maybe it's 3.
Maybe it's 3.
Exactly.
I think 1.5 gives enough time for people to reposition. It should be okay.
I agree.
But that might be a little too fast with like slow vehicles. So maybe 3, but we'll see.
Maybe, yeah. So vehicles is a good consideration. I think for heroes overall, though, especially with the movement speed change, 1.5 seconds feels pretty long.
1.5 seconds does feel really long. And I think maybe they could leave it at 1.5 and then possibly put in a stipulation that it doesn't work on vehicles. But that might really I don't know.
I bet it's one of the, I'm sure having it not work on vehicles was a consideration, and I bet for some reason they're just like, we don't want to pull that thread just yet.
Yeah, he actually rips vehicles in an underrated sense because his Q does a lot of damage to vehicles. And I think people don't understand that. But between Q and R, he's a pretty good hero for maps like Volskaya, I would say.
I am right there with you. So we kind of already talked about the community reaction to Whitemane and Daybringer's response. There was one last kind of blue response I wanted to mention, which was that Sky Temple's lighting has been adjusted, you'll notice. If you
saw
go
that.
If you go and take a look. And there was a thread about it on Heroes of the Storm. It was, I think it was user Mr. Fizbin pointed out on the Reddit, kind of talking about, oh, thank God I can actually see KT's abilities on Sky Temple. And Heroes Dev Thomas replied saying that quote was actually one of the biggest reasons we decided to adjust the lighting. That Sky Temple had a unique combination of art and lighting choices that made certain effects that existed in Heroes of the Storm very difficult to read. And originally they were thinking about adjusting the effects, and they're like, well, no, because now this might make the effects harder to read on other maps.
Can I point out something about this change that's a little strange? A lot of other games get around this by adding a red indicator, a really bold red indicator around abilities that are hard to see. I'm really surprised they didn't just do that. KT's bomb, his W, should have a little indicator to show people where the spread radius is. His Q should have a big red indicator. When we loaded into Sky Temple, everyone thought it was Tomb of the Spider Queen.
Yeah, it's seriously overcast.
It's dark now, and it has the same visual camps as Tomb of the Spider Queen. So we loaded in, and everyone was like, "Whoa, they changed Tomb of the Spider Queen," and it's like, "No, we're on Sky Temple," and they're like, "Oh, okay, that makes sense." People will get used to it, but I do miss the bright Uldum feeling of Sky Temple already, just playing on it on the PTR a bunch, because we every game that we joined for the QA group was on Sky Temple. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt that they can adjust this a little bit and make it still feel like Sky Temple by just maybe brightening up maybe the camps or something. I'm not exactly sure how they can do it, but I am just surprised that they don't have indicators for the hero that any hero that has difficult to see abilities. Add some really clear indicators. You know, I feel like that would be easier than just like changing an entire map to feel like another map. But I'm not mad at this change at all. I just thought it was a little strange.
It's kind of the sort of thing you will get used to. But if you've been playing, if you played before the change, it's confusing.
I'm not mad at all. We'll literally get in a week, and it's not a big deal. It's a little bit, people who like the bright Sky Temple will be a little sad that's a little bit darker. But outside of people there, this is going to be better for everyone. Yeah. Period.
So anyways, that's pretty much it as far as the patch notes and blue responses. Let's take a question or two before we wrap the episode up. So let's get into emails.
Darkness stopped calling. Darkness just texted me.
It's not the moment, it's a hero brawler!
Send your emails in to itncast@gmail.com. If you're a patron, you can drop us messages right there in the patron Discord. And Jesse wrote in and said, I recently checked out a video that Fan put up on Twitch where he played Sylvanas in a way I hadn't really considered playing, even though I main her and take pride in being able to pilot multiple builds and playstyles. What he did was, rather than use Haunting Wave as an escape or to initiate Banshee's curse stacks for the big damage combo, he used it, to put it in fighting game terms, as a cross-up. He would wait for the right moment in a fight and then wave and teleport through the entire enemy team, attack them from behind, and then wave back through them again, all while laying down a ridiculous amount of damage with Withering Fire and Shadow Dagger. It was reckless as all get out and got him killed a couple of times, but on balance, he came out ahead with the amount of damage he put into the enemy team. Also, I could see auto attacks getting redirected and skill shots missing as he moved through them. since I've been using a much lower skill version of that tactic to great success, going 6-1 in Storm League with Sylvanas this week since watching the video. Have you guys ever had a similar eureka moment, especially with a hero you were maining at the time, that caused you to adopt a completely new playstyle? Thanks for the excellent infotainment.
Yeah, I mean the tricky part about this is like Treebeard's been running this for a while, and he's even said, he's like, if you're playing against, for whatever reason, teams that are a lot lower ranked than you, this is the best way to play Sylvanas. He goes, but the second that you play against teams that are about the same skill level, he goes, they're gonna kill you real fast. Like, they're gonna see what you're doing, they're gonna plan it out, all that. Fan gets away with it because half the time he's playing on a Smurf, and the other half the time the system doesn't know where to place him, so they just put him against diamond players. But as far as eureka moments, and if that works in your MMR, awesome. Seriously, go for it. Use it, abuse it. And if you get really good at it, you could even do it against people that are a little higher ranked than you, because they're not ready for how good you are with it. As far as eureka moments, I think, I don't know. I had a few with like Zarya. I know that sounds really weird, but I was going like the Q build a long time with Zarya, and then someone said that the W explosion talent, it scales really well with your damage over time, or with your passive, your trait, right? Because you get that enhanced damage. And I didn't realize it was that big, because I would always read the tooltip and be like, oh, that's not that much damage, and I have to wait for it to blow up. I started messing around with that talent, and it's a surprisingly high amount of damage if that thing goes off. So that's probably my biggest eureka moment on a hero. Is it seems such like a little thing, but it scales really well. If you can get that high energy, you can get in the middle of their team, and that W thing blows up. It hits hard. So that's probably my eureka moment, I would say.
Mine was the one that pops into my mind isn't like a specific thing where I discovered something new on a hero, but there was a point where I discovered there was a certain hero I should be playing, and it kind of ties into what you were talking about well, let's not mince words, outclassing your opponent. You know, if you find yourself kind of, you know, realizing that your game knowledge, it's something like you're like, oh no, I understand this now. And for me, it was you know, I had slipped back down into gold. And this was, I think, last year. No, I think I even went as far as silver 1. And I was sitting there, I'm like, how did I end up this low? And I'm playing some games, and I just realized I'm looking at the movements of my enemy players, and I'm going, your positioning is just completely insane. Like, why are you standing where you're standing? Why am I think it was after all the Sonya nerfs, and I had just backslid like crazy because I was one tricking Sonya like nobody's business. And I'm like,
I remember.
yeah. I'm like, okay, all right. Sonya's not getting it done anymore. But I just kept noticing in these games where I'm just like, frankly, judging the people I'm playing against, going, why would you ever think it's okay to stand there? And I go, you know what? I'm going to play Kerrigan. And I just went on a mad winning streak. Because every single time I saw someone out of position, they were dead.
Oh yeah.
And that's something I had to abandon once I got back up to where I usually am in like the mid plat range. I'm like, okay, everybody knows positioning again. Let's get off the Kerrigan and go back to our usual bruiser duties. But that was a big eureka for me. That was probably one of the only times in the history of Heroes where I wasn't smurfing, where I really just felt like I was dumping on the enemy teams. It was gross.
When something happens and you end up lower ranked than you are, it does feel like you're sometimes, and sometimes you feel bad, and then you remember you're on your main account, you shouldn't feel bad. Like, I got decayed recently because I was mostly just watching games. I was running tournaments, I was running events, and I realized that I wasn't playing Storm League at all on my main account, and I got decayed, and I was like, I won so many games in a row. I felt bad. I'm like, I really don't like smurfing. And I looked at it, I'm like, I'm on my main account. I shouldn't be complaining here. I shouldn't be feeling bad. This is my main account. This is Blizzard's problem, not my problem.
Yeah, exactly. It happens to all of us. And I mean, that could also be applied to the whole look at your stats, look at your win rates, and maybe adjust your roster if you need to. But that was a big eureka moment for me. Also, since I've been dusting off Sylvanas, I've actually been doing this as well. I had a game yesterday where I would, like, at the end of it, I was like, I feel bad. Like, it was just, I had no DAS. I was just haunting waving wherever I wanted to go. It just happened to be this just random game I ended up in. But I also grabbed some questions from the patron Discord. John Brandon wanted to know, and I think actually wrote in specifically to ask you this question. In case of doubt, how do you decide between a high damage offlaner like Thrall or Malthael and a lower damage offlaner like ETC or Blaze?
I think you just really, I mean, for a lot of times, offlane should be something that you try to pick last if you can. And if you're with your team, try to let your offlaner pick last because they have the counter pick options for literally anything that happens in the game. Someone sent me a whole list of like 100 questions and they're like, how do we counter all these comps? And I literally put them on a call and I'm like, I'm not going to type all this. I said, but here's the deal. And he's like, how do we counter Illidan Abathur? I'm like, Arthas. How do we counter Samuro? I'm like, Arthas. He's like, how do we counter triple tank? I'm like, Malthael. And I literally went down every single question and I was able to answer it with a solo laner. And I said, make sure that you're drafting your solo laner last. And then he sent me over the next week in NGS and they played against 2 or 3 different teams. Oh, Heroes on J and NGS. They played both. And he's like, oh, we were undefeated in all of our games once we switched our solo lane to the last pick. I was like, it has the answer to everything. So
it's the X factor, right?
It is. It really is. It has the largest roster pool and it has the answer to everything. So does your team need CC? Do you need an extra tank? What does this enemy have? If they have a lot of burst, you want more frontline. If they have a lot of sustained damage, you normally want to have more CC, right? You need to CC them down. If they have a lot of frontline, you might need more damage. It really just depends. Are they going triple frontline? You may want to run a Malthael or a Ragnaros, something that can do heavy percent health damage. If you need a global, is it a big map? Do you want a Dahaka or an ETC? Usually ETC is only drafted for the global if you're going to throw them the solo lane. Blaze tends to be, do you need to counter pick something like a Last Rites or something that you need a bunker for? Or I personally just go combustion and just do they have a healer that can't deal with a bunch of AoE damage at once? Do they have like an Uther or a Morales where if you just cover AoE damage on everyone, you'll eventually just win the fight? Thrall just tends to be a pick where if you need to pick him earlier, then he can deal with just about everything. But Thrall is a great follow-up. He also has poke. I like him just for a lot of situations if I don't know who else to pick.
He's a little bit of a Swiss Army knife.
Yeah. So that's really what it comes down to is pick last. Look what your team's missing. Does your team not have a lot of damage? Pick more damage. Does your team not have a lot of CC? Pick more CC. And if the enemies have a lot of tanks, pick something that counters tanks. They have a lot of healers. Pick something that can reduce their healing. You literally, the solo lane can fill anything and just pick last. That's my biggest tip for solo lane.
Yep. And I'm going to troll, but not really, and just say, just pick Rexxar because he kind of just does all of this.
I mean, kind of, yeah. Pick Rexxar.
Again, kind of like
Rexxar's the one that you can first pick because he's so good on certain maps that he's like the only time that solo laner should be picking first. It's just because he's just that good on like 2 maps. You have to pick him first. But some of the teams I'm coaching, they have one of the teams I'm coaching, they have a Rexxar one trick. So he's just like, I'm just going to pick Rexxar. I'm like, you should be doing this and that. And he goes, I'm just going to pick Rexxar. Oh, they have this and this. I'm just going to pick Rexxar. And it's like, okay, we get it. You're just going to pick Rexxar.
It's kind of the boat I find myself in so many times. You know, I can't tell you how many games where the Zul'jin gets picked on the enemy team. And I'm like, I probably shouldn't have Rexxar, but I'm going to do it anyway because I'm just going to disrespect the Zul'jin.
I'm just going to pick Rexxar.
Yep. Yeah, that happened a lot when I was working on Malthael because I found any game where I Malthaeled in the Zul'jin, it was really rough. And I'm like, well, Rexxar is not great against Zul'jin, but it works out better for me than when I Malthael against Zul'jin. So,
yeah.
And then finally, Midnight Fire asks, how could we get players from unranked to jump to Storm League? And continues saying, personally, I'm a fan of unranked. I hate toxicity in Storm League. As a healer main, I feel bullied when I solo in ranked mode. And bringing value is so hard when your team is not coordinated. People consider me as a heal bot, and I don't listen when I give advice. And don't listen when I give advice. But I would really like to jump in there once in a while to improve my skills. I'm just waiting for an opportunity, and I'm probably not the only one.
It's a tricky subject. I would be more happy trying to get everyone from quick match to unranked right now, just because I feel like people aren't playing the real game in quick match, and everyone's complaining about things that are exclusive problems in quick match. They're like, "Oh, our team didn't get a healer, and their team got like some weird support thing that can sort of heal, or they got more self-healing things, or oh, we got for our tank variant." And it's like all of these are like exclusive quick match problems, and people could be playing the real game.
Yeah, drafting fixes all of that.
Yeah, almost all the complaints on Reddit are things that could be solved with play unranked. However, to get people from unranked to Storm League is a tricky one. Like in most games I play, I have ladder anxiety, and I don't have that in unranked. So I don't really mind people playing unranked, but I do think that more incentive to Storm League would be the answer. More rewards. Like this season, dude, they even announced the mounts or anything. Let's make the mounts more visible. Let's make all these things more visible of what you can earn by getting into Storm League, and add more bragging rights, add more things that you guys can like push by hitting those higher ranks. Give people more things. I think that that's the big problem I see, is that there's not enough incentive, especially if you're going to be placing like silver. You can't brag about that at all, and there's no need to, like, you don't even want to play Storm League anymore. So add some incentive to just play. Like right now we have, win 50 games, you get extra gold. Let's add some more cool stuff to that. Let's add more things to encourage people to get into Storm League. I like the direction they're going. I just want to encourage Blizzard to push that direction a little bit more. Let's encourage people to play a lot more Storm League.
If like, to a certain degree, it's a balancing act with the actual economy of the game, in a sense of it being a game that's profitable, right? Because if you give too much away, people aren't going to buy enough. But I do think, like, talking about Heroes of the Storm, there's absolutely an opportunity, I think, to give more things away for not necessarily for free, but for playing the game. Because if you're incentivizing people to just log more games, to play the game more, I think a lot of times they're just incentivized more to actually spend money within your ecosystem because of spending more time there. So yeah, I'm with you. Why not just offer a big old pile of loot chests?
Oh yeah, I mean, my joke about it is always, my friends and I playing League of Legends at the same time. This was a good probably 8 years ago, right? Probably like maybe 9 or 10 years ago now. We all went and started playing League of Legends at the same time. We were going against this really good Vladimir player. We all got dominated. This guy 1v5'd us. And we were like, that's insane. We all bought Vladimir right after that game with cash. We all bought Vladimir. They made like $40 right there. Then we lost a good 30 games in a row of all of us realizing it wasn't Vladimir that was overpowered. It was just that player was really good. But that's the thing, is like, us playing the game more, we spent way more money. And it was like, this is the same thing, is like, if they could encourage people, they lose a Storm League game against like, I don't know, some really good Thrall, they're like, let's all buy Thrall now, you know? And I think that's something that would be really cool. But yeah, it's tricky. It's like you give away too much stuff and they have all this gold available. You give out too many loot boxes. Exclusive skins, I think, is the best way to answer it, because if you can get exclusive stuff for doing that, then people feel like they have to do enough to get those exclusive skins. I think that's kind of the best way for that. I think the issue with me for Storm League right now, I have two major issues, but that's for a whole different rant. But I just wish more people were playing so that we can get more close games again. Like when I queue up and I'm like high masters or whatever. I mean, right now I'm not high masters, but let's say I'm high masters. I queue up and I get diamond 5s in my game, and those always happen to be ones throwing the game. It doesn't feel good. So it would be nice to get more people playing to where we don't get diamond 5s in the game anymore. And diamond 5s, they feel the same problem. They're getting punished for mistakes they've never seen get punished before, and they're losing the game, and it feels bad for them too. I think everyone needs to move up and like learn the game, learn the higher levels as they're moving up, rather than just getting thrown into a game, like getting absolutely smashed in a million directions that you don't even know what you're doing wrong anymore. And I think that's the hard part. Is I'd like more people to play Storm League, but I feel like the incentives for me, gold is not an incentive. I own all the heroes, and I don't really need the loot chests. And it's like, but if they gave me exclusive skins for playing 50 games and they gave me exclusive mounts for getting certain ranks, I'd be more apt to playing a lot more. Because right now I'm sitting at like 33 wins, and I have no intention of getting to 50 unless they tie the mounts to it, which so far they haven't said that they will. The only thing that says it's tied to it is the 2,000 gold. So I don't know. It's tricky. I think convincing people to go to Storm League right now is tough because personally I have just as much fun in unranked as I do have in Storm League. But Storm League I feel bad when I lose, and unranked I don't. So
yeah, I mean, this is a conversation that comes up in essentially every game I've ever covered. We talked about ladder anxiety when we did StarCraft. We've talked about it multiple times here on Into the Nexus. We've talked about it over on the Angry Chicken in regards to Hearthstone as well. I think Hearthstone's actually taken a lot of really strong steps to kind of alleviate it. You know, they added the ranked floors and stuff like that. But yeah, as far as getting players to jump from unranked to Storm League, I mean, they're trying. You know, they're trying. They opened it up to where you can play with friends if you want. So a social aspect I have always found to be a really strong motivator for getting over ladder anxiety. And so just getting rid of that limitation for me is a big incentive, because it means, oh, my buddy's on, we're around the same area, level. We understand how each other plays. I'm going to get in and play some Storm League. Let's do it. You know, where otherwise maybe I would have gone and played a Hearthstone game or messed around a Roller Coaster Tycoon or whatever I'm obsessed with that week.
Could I also add something that I feel like the ladder anxiety wouldn't be so bad if the games weren't worth so much? Like, could they double the length of these seasons and then make it to where you don't lose 500 to 600 points? Like, I played with a friend and he lost 3 games in a row and literally went down like 2 full ranks. And then he's like, I don't want to go down to bronze. And he's like, I'm not going to play Storm League anymore. And I was like, that's really bad. Like that. And that could have just been luck. Like I played those games with him on my Smurf, and we just had some really bizarre games. Like I always tell people, like, you're going to lose 30% of your games. And he just got really bad dice roll. That's really what happened. It's like he got his 30% of games 3 times in a row. And yeah. I feel like that is really... That's almost just as bad right now. The fact that he lost, I didn't even know you could lose this many points. He was sending me screenshots of losing 612 points 3 games in a row. That's 1,800 points. That's 2 full divisions drop down. That's insane.
I'm surprised we haven't heard any comments on the major differences in the amount of points that people are winning and losing, depending on who you're talking to.
It's crazy. And like, I'm sure if he would have won, he would have won that same amount of points. But the fact that he goes from silver 4, so he was silver 3 to silver 5, and like this close to being bronze, and he's just like, I'm done playing. I don't get decayed. I have no intention of going down to bronze because then people are going to make fun of me. And he's like, I'm just going to stay silver and not play Storm League anymore. And it's like, that decentivizes people too. But if things were slower and you just moved down like 10 games in a row, then you know you need to improve something. You need to change something. But to lose only 3 is like, I don't know if you ever like look at people's accounts and like you're trying to see what they can play and what they can't play before you're like in a game. So you can kind of give recommendations like, hey, we need a solo laner. You check his account. He's got like 10 more wins and losses on something. You're like, oh, he's good at that. But then if he only has like 100% win rate and he plays one game,
we've definitely done that before. But if they stop playing, you can't do that. You
can't do that. If he loses 3 games and he never wants to play again, it's like that's just chance, but at the same time it's way too punishing. So yeah, I feel like
you're discussing essentially it's a free fall. And it just happens. It does happen relatively quickly. But again, I feel like something funky is going on with points, because not everyone's in the plus 200, minus 200 sweet spot. There's a lot of people we hear from. I even experienced that this season. I'm still seeing above 300 point swings in a lot of cases.
Yeah.
Now I've chalked up a lot of that to my own fault, because one of my friends that I play with on the regular is, between Diamond 1 and Masters, and I'm in Platinum. So the game's probably just confused with me.
It could be that. Like, I find if you're playing with someone's high rank, you have larger swing. like up and down, you have larger swings. Because I noticed that too. When I was on my main account, I was grouping with people that were usually lower rank, and I'm moving up by about 100 and down by about 100. And then on my Smurf, I'm playing with people that are usually higher ranked than me, and I'm moving up and down by about 400 or 500. And it's weird, but I still think it's like even the 100 swings are a little high because it's not an overall. Like you get a small win streak at 500 points and suddenly you're way higher ranked than you feel you should be and you stop playing. You get a small loss streak, you get way lower and you get discouraged and you stop playing. Either choice, you stop playing. And I feel like if they made these smaller numbers, then people would be playing more and people would be like, okay, I need 4 wins in a row to go from plat all the way up to masters. Right? Like it's more like, okay, I need 20 more wins and losses, which means that I need to change my entire play style to start moving up in rank rather than I just need 1 lucky swing, you know? And I think that's where it's throwing me off a little bit is like, oh, you get a lucky swing, you stop playing. You get an unlucky swing, you stop playing. And like Hearthstone is kind of like a weird beast about that because they reset seasons every month. But like League of Legends, I think is a great example of you move up slowly, you move down slowly, but it's a season a year. So like you'll get there eventually if that's your goal. The rewards aren't even that insane, but people keep playing because there's like you get a loss streak, no biggie. You just push on forward. You change your play style a little bit, you adjust things, you try to learn from it.
It's an interesting kind of like look at like differing philosophies in the gamification of a ladder system. Because if it happens if the seasons end and reset too frequently, you can instill anxiety. If it's too long, there may not be enough incentive to play. But there's also the argument, like you just mentioned, where it's just kind of that's just the way you play the game. Because it's kind of this ever-present thing that's just this thing you constantly are chipping away at. Hearthstone's interesting because it's so 1-to-1 and your ascent you are matched up based on rank and there's not so much an MMR and there's also rank floors. So imagine
there's like win streaking and you get put where you are. Like I don't know about you, but every time I play Hearthstone, I can pretty much always win streak to 5 and then that's where I hit the wall.
Well, yeah, because there's no more
that's
streaking.
When win streak stops.
You can't go streaking. That's the real, like that's we make the joke we call rank 5 dad legend. Like that's you got to. Are you a parent? Well, get proud when you hit 5 because you probably don't have many hours to actually.
You're not
hit legend.
going any further. Yeah,
because
it's because it takes a long time. But I can almost always win streak to 5 and then I stop. And then if I want to hit legend, it's literally just. If I have a 51% win rate, well, that's going to take some time, but I'll eventually get there.
But you know how many games you have to play.
Yeah.
Like you can actually figure a number out. I always call it catching the wave. You know, there's days where in Hearthstone you catch it, you get your you either catch the matchups you're looking for, you catch the draws you're looking for. Sometimes you get both and you just go on a disgusting win streak. Oh, like that last season with freaking Murloc Paladin. But the same thing can happen in Heroes of the Storm. But the thing is it's weird. I don't think you should put a ranked floor in Heroes of the Storm, especially after all the work they just put into trying to directly map your league position to your MMR. If suddenly we introduce ranked floors and you bottom out at, gold 5, silver 5, whatever, but your MMR continues to dip down, that doesn't really fix the problem. It maybe alleviates your ladder anxiety for that season, but next season when you go into your placement games and suddenly you're in bronze from maybe gold 5 because you went on a particularly awful losing streak, well, cool. Well, you're just done. You're not going to play next season as opposed to the season you're currently in.
Yeah, it's tricky. And again, this is one of those things like we mentioned it. I never want to be like the person that's like, oh, I agree or disagree. It's like, no, I'm going to adapt and roll with it. And I did. I mean, like they placed me low every season. Last season, they're like, you're platinum. And it's like, no, I'm masters. I get back to masters. Right. And then they're like, you're mid diamond this season. I'm like, why do you keep doing this to me? And then I'm like, back to masters again. I'm like, can we just keep me at masters, please? Can I just stay there? And so it's like, you can still get there. The system still works. It's just that, is it discouraging in its current state? I adapt to it. I think everyone should adapt to it, but sometimes people don't. And you need to account for that. If you're trying to build a game, sometimes people don't. And I think that was my favorite thing about Overwatch compared to other shooters is that if people didn't want to adapt to learning on how to aim, you could still play Overwatch with your friends. You could play heroes that don't need to aim. And I thought that was cool. Is Overwatch, unlike a lot of other shooters at the time, you could play whatever you wanted. Like you could play even if you were bad at shooters and still play with your friends that were good at shooters. All you have to do is play Mercy. All you have to play is Moira or like something like that. Even Lucio, you miss half your abilities, you're still healing your team. Half your shots, you're still healing your team. So I like that concept of being all inclusive, but still having the people that are good at shooters really doing well. We've seen Widowmakers just bam, 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 bam. Just, oh, we wiped it, we get the objective. And it's like, it's cool because it brings in everyone. And I think that's the problem is the high rank players and the people that play a lot of HOTS are adapting. The people that aren't are getting discouraged. And that's, I think, where we need to make sure that it's all inclusive again. What's the most friendly method? What doesn't discourage people? I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
It's a good way to wrap your kind of tie it all up there. It's clearly ladder systems are difficult. That's why there's so many games with ladder systems and so many differences between each ladder system. There's just different ways to kind of implement it, and there's been a lot of work done to ours this year. I think as with anything, some parts of it have been successful, other parts less so. I'm like getting a little impatient, not impatient. I wish I could like just jump in a time machine and see what things look like next season. If they've kind of figured out the point system, if they've made improvements, especially with the higher end of the bell curve and putting games together, if that's improved, because those have been kind of the big standout issues, I think, with Storm League this season. But, only time is going to tell. But Midnight Fire, thank you for your question. John Brandon as well. And Jesse, thank you, everybody. Keep the emails coming, itncast@gmail.com. Or if you're a patron, drop a message in the patron Discord. I think it's a good place to wrap this episode up. Paradox,
I think so.
Again, thanks so much for coming on, dude. Thanks again to our patrons for supporting us. If you want to support the show, patreon.com/ITN is the place to do so. Huge thanks, by the way, to our producers, Declan H., Cheesy Bob, Chris K., and Robert M. We're typically live Thursdays at 3 p.m. Eastern Time right here on twitch.tv/AMoveTV. You can follow us on Twitter at ITNcast. And before we go, Paradox, you make all kinds of awesome content, especially Heroes content. Where can everybody find you?
Again, like the main place that I always recommend is channel, youtube.com/NotParadox. You're going to find all sorts of HOTS related stuff. I mean, I have philosophy videos that are HOTS related. I've got psychology videos that are HOTS related. I've got guides for, I would say, 80% of the roster that are all meta related, all guides that I've gotten, people that I've coached from one rank all the way up to a different rank. Probably my main success story. I have two major success stories. One that went from bronze to masters, another one that went from silver to grandmasters. And so there are a lot of ways that you guys can learn from that channel. So check that out. Otherwise, I was dumb and I didn't get NotParadox on everything. So just Google NotParadox. You'll find my Twitter handle, which is different from my Facebook handle, which is different from my Instagram handle, which is different from my YouTube handle, which is different from my Twitch handle. So Google me, you'll find everything. I do stream events weekly. This week, I believe on Saturday or Sunday, I haven't decided yet. We were going to be doing a 2v2 tournament that is prized. Woo! So feel free to check out all of that. And thank you again for having me on this show. I always love being on this show.
Well, thanks for stopping by, dude. We really appreciate it, especially with Kyle out. Everybody, make sure you tweet at him, by the way, at Kyle Fergusson. Send him your congratulations, your well wishes. Tell him to snuggle his baby and Kristen nice and close. I'm so stoked. I can't wait to meet their kid. And I have no idea when that's going to happen because we literally live on opposite corners of the continental U.S. from each other. But I'm just so stoked for them. Kyle may be back next week. He said he would be. I'm not holding him to it. If he comes back yo, it's been a week. Paradox, I may give you another poke.
Okay. I'm up for it.
Folks, you can follow me on Twitter at GarrettArt. You can find all the podcasts that I produce, this one included, over at amove.tv. We have a brand new episode of Let's Talk About Star Wars out. We got another one coming next week. Angry Chicken still going strong. Had lots to talk about this week. We actually technically put out 2 episodes of the Angry Chicken this week because we had so much to talk about in regards to Hearthstone esports and the weird kind of for lack of a better word, drama resulting in a player in Grandmasters Europe playing an auto chess tournament at the same time that he was playing his Hearthstone tournament on air. So if you want to hear that, go subscribe to the Angry Chicken wherever podcasts can be found. That's going to wrap it up for this episode. Until next week, good luck and have fun, everyone.